Present.
Mike McLaughlin, here. Any declaration of conflicts of interest? Nope.
Nay.
None? Okay, we're gonna start with the mayor's update. All righty. Get down to her here. One of the first roles that I had as the mayor was to gather information from various points of interest of accounting challenges between the water district and the town of Apple Valley. In that process, Junior's a seat over, can you stand?
I'm sure, thank you.
During that process, there was many allegations, there were many accusations, there were many frustrations, et cetera, et cetera. In an attempt to get past the two individual sides, I consulted with the town council and concluded that our best path forward was to step away from previous and past procedures and operations, and we went directly to the Attorney General's office. And we invited the Attorney General's office. Folks, there's some chairs over here. Can you sit down? There's a couple over here too. We went directly to the Attorney General's office because many of the accusations that were being made were obviously fairly negative in the financial arena that suggested improprieties on both sides of the coin. I contacted Mr. Brandon Call, who is the section chief of the Special Investigations of Public Corruption Unit for the Attorney General's Office of the State of Utah. I told him and made him apprise him of our situation and what we were going through and what we were trying to ascertain. We had suggested to the Attorney General's office that before they got involved and took any type of action or began any investigation, that they allow us to bring in a third-party accountant to do a forensic accounting of both the town and the water district's activities for the past administration. Did not go back all the way to Rick Mosier. In that process, we hired a gentleman by the name of David Sanderson. Some of the people at the past water board had requested that I release that information to the public during that meeting. I had tried to state that because of the sensitive nature of it, that didn't feel like it was appropriate to release that information until we completed that process. That process had been completed and that information is available for the public to retrieve at their disposal. In that evaluation, I'm going to read, it's not long, so you can bear with me. I'm going to read his two reports. His first report is a fraud analysis. He reconciled all checking and PTIF accounts to the current date status and observed that the various entries that were involved in these processes. That means we were not just looking for the checks and balances or pluses and minuses of the dollar figure. We wanted to know who made the entries and what documentation supported those entries. If there was a claim for a payment or if there was a claim for a just distribution or transfer of payment, we wanted to see the documentation behind it to ensure that it was just simply not a journal entry, which was one of the accusations. He brought those currents. He downloaded a 5-year check register and sorted the various ways to look at vendor totals and the vendors themselves. He researched the vendors to see if there were any, if they were legitimate. He looked at the vendor checking. Do we have questions? Do we have questions?
No.
Thank you. He researched the vendors to see if they were legitimate and looked at every vendor check amounts and vendor cycles, trying to find any patterns. He compared the vendors on the checks to the bank statements, check images to verify that they were the same, had not been altered or changed in any way. He reviewed the utility bill write-offs for large amounts and continuous write-off amounts. He reviewed all voided checks and voided deposits. He reviewed payroll records, payroll and tax distributions, and direct deposit withdrawals from checking accounts. He reviewed the check images for proper signatures and any alterations. He reviewed the Big Valley due payable accounts. He compared it to the year-end audits reported to and balances. His observations in the Apple Valley financial, the reconciliations were not current on the checking accounts and the PTI savings accounts. They were updated and reconciled to date. In the review of check images, 2 checks lacked the standard 2 signatures on a check. The semi-annual state treasury deposit reports were not timely filed in December 2020 and were considered to be delinquent by the state. They have now been completed and submitted. They have also been recognized by the state to be complete since this report. Transparency information has been uploaded, but with the lack of reconciliations not being up to date, the information uploaded was not accurate, therefore it should be deleted and a new file information uploaded since all reconciliations are to date. The financial software access and right should be redone and a master list be created and accepted by council. What that means is that we basically froze all access to our county system until we can get through this process. In the board meeting, one of the primary concerns by the citizens was that the board or the water district did not have access to their accounting. I reminded everybody at the public meeting that the treasurer did in fact have access to it. He simply did not have access to the system via a remote location or a third-party password during this process. That was the reason why it was partly sensitive material. Big Valley, and I apologize, this is Big Valley, maybe claims. Due and payable account balances did not reconcile to year-ending audit amounts, so further analysis with the auditors is recommended. In the Apple Valley financial recommendations, he consolidated the PTI funds he suggested the recommendations are to consolidate the PTIF funds to one account, eliminate the second checking account, eliminate the use of debit card and rules associated with its use if not already in place, rework the accounting software user access and user rights and limit it to the treasurer's accessibility and the town clerk, create sub-funds to account for restricted monies. These funds will consolidate at year end. Separate the accounts for restricted monies. We must set up a budget to depict this change. Funds 11 for the Class C road and tax transportation funds. Fund 12 for the fire impact fees. Fund 13 for the roadway impact fees, Fund 14 stormwater impact fees, Fund 15 parks, trails, and impact fees, and Fund 16 grants. For Big Plains, much of the same, consolidate PTIF funds into one account, eliminate the second checking account, limit the use of debit card and the rules associated with it, rework accounting software user access and user rights, have checks written and printed off the accounting system, and discontinue the manual process. I can tell you that as a mayor, I was not even made aware that there was a manual checkbook available out in the open public that was being written checks from. Create stub funds to account for restricted monies, and these funds will consolidate at the year end. Separated the 2 accounts for restricted monies, but the budget also to depict this change. Fund 52 water impact fees and Fund 53 sewer impact fees. The conclusion, and I hope everybody hears this because I want this pointed directly to Tanya McGinnis. There was, and there has never been, in any case of these documents that we remotely suggest that she had any improprieties in her In conclusion, it also states the very same thing for the previous mayor and the previous administration staff. No fraud activities whatsoever. Observations and recommendations should be implemented and implement the financial suggestions. That is the report from Mr. Sanderson. That is made available to the public, should you desire to have a copy of that. I have furthered my conversation with Mr. Call from the Attorney General's office, and will be following up after tonight's meeting with direction from the council to inform them that we have found no such improprieties and we would like to close this matter.
May I ask a question? Mr. Meadow?
Yeah.
With that all said and done, so how do we look for the town for the SSD?
We'll get to that budget portion. We look fairly good. The biggest thing here, guys, is that most of the, I'm going to give my perception, okay? I'm going to give you my summary of what I feel like I found through this process. It is very easy for us as residents to sit out there in our homes and look at the office and see people coming in and out doing things that I suspect are doing something improprietary, inappropriate. I'm going to, and Marty, if you apologize to your wife, I'm going to use Tish for an example because she was one of the gals that was directly complained about. She was in here a couple of weeks ago doing some assisting with the accounting. One of the residents of the town felt like that was inappropriate for whatever reasons. But I reminded the board and I remind the public again that Mrs. Lisenby was appointed by town council approximately 18 to 24 months ago to work as a liaison to help with our staff to maintain our accounting in the town. However, to my knowledge and to my understanding, and what I think I found out through this process is that she had no ability to alter or enter anything. She just had the ability to review. It's my understanding from Polaris, which is our software program, that she would have to call them up and ask them to make changes while she sat there and reviewed it to ensure that it was done correctly. So it's very easy to sit back and say, wow, what the heck's going on there? There must be something going on there. And that runs rampant in everybody's mind. I do it, you do it, we all do it to some degree with something. You know, it may not be our town accountant, it may be my bishop. You know, I see my bishop down at the grocery store on Sunday and he's telling me I can't spend money on Sabbath. You know, what are you doing down there? We all do those types of things. And I think a lot of this is generated from those types of thoughts, and then we collaborate those thoughts, Kevin, and then all of a sudden they become rumors on the street that these things are going on. So in that sense, yes, I'm answering your question.
Oh, okay.
And through that process, we are fairly strong. We're not where we want to be. We're not where we could be, but we're getting there. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape. We have a little bit more money than what I thought we had. Mayor Lisenby.
Is that the town or the assistant?
Look, Mayor Lisenby was pretty diligent in his administration of this town, and we've got a pretty good cash flow to us, more so than I thought we did. So yeah, I think in my opinion, we're in pretty good shape. Okay, any other questions on that? Oh, Mike. Okay. I want to thank the public for giving me a minute to address that, and I will hope you accept my apology from the board meeting when I refused to release that information. We were asked to do it under non-disclosure. We weren't asked to, we requested to do it under non-disclosure. I requested to do it under non-disclosure. These things are sensitive subjects. These families, both of these families, have been hammered and beat up over the last couple of years, and I just didn't want it to go on any further. I've never met Mrs. McGinnis until a week and a half ago, but I know Harold Merritt and Nancy, and I'm telling you, they're the salt of the earth, and I just didn't like hearing those comments being made, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and that was my best avenue to get there. So we're gonna close with that. Same way with the Lisenby family. I've gotten to know them, and same thing goes for them. There's just simply nothing there, guys. The accounting has been sloppy, perhaps, because of change in personnel or whatever reason you want to put on there, but it is pretty good shape. It's in pretty good shape. So there it is. All right, item next. Public hearing on the adoption of the tentative budget for fiscal year 22. There are a couple of challenges that we have found in the accounting. I want to point out that we are approving a tentative budget which is due by the end of May, but the final budget is not due until the end of June. And as such, we'll have time to make a couple of adjustments on the accounting that we found some registers and a check that Taylor processed 6 months ago was never recorded. Just, we've got some house cleaning items we need to get caught up on before we finish that final budget. So what we'll be approving tonight will be a tentative budget with the ability to have next month to amend that and get it caught up to speed. I'll make sure we understand that. Give you guys a minute to look at it. Did it come with questions?
Got a magnifying glass?
Exactly.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So 4415.450 public works supplies, up 1,067%. Was that a capital outlay or what's that?
To be honest with you, I can't even read it. That is the smallest print I've ever seen.
Page,
I don't know what to tell you on it.
Isn't this a public hearing?
This is not a public hearing.
It says it's a public
Well,
hearing.
you gotta get the agenda.
Hang on, guys. We're gonna discuss it first, and then we'll open up the public comment. Unless you got a younger pair of eyes than mine, you come up and read it, because I can't.
Well, I'm just gonna have to print on mine.
Hey, looky there. Okay, which section are you on?
Page 5. Public works supplies, 4415.450. Okay. Wow.
It's on page 5.
Yeah,
How far down is the line item?
Hang on, you can borrow this.
about halfway.
Public improvements, right?
Public works supplies.
Yeah, what line item again? 4450, 450?
Yes.
Yeah.
1,067%.
Here, use this. Somewhere right about in there. Wow, that's small print. David?
What one was it, Paul?
Public works supplies, it's 4415.450. Wondering why it went up 1,067%. That's the only thing I just kind of caught that at.
I think, in talking to John Barlow, some of this, if you're looking at third column, I made this mistake of I was looking at next year's projections, thinking it was this year's expenditures. And, there was nothing behind it, just an increase.
Yeah, it just says proposal.
Right. And it is proposal, it isn't money expenditure.
Yeah, but it's from 300 all the way to 3,500, unless that's a typo, it should be 350. Maybe it's a typo on the 3,500.
Sorry?
No, just 3,500.
It has 3,500.
A ruler? Oh,
Just stare at your desk.
I don't think I have.
So-
it.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Use this. His expectations of office usage was gonna grow enough this year that we'd spend those kind of dollars. Some of it has to do with some equipment we're gonna need in the office. We are paying currently a lease on our printer of, I don't remember the number, but a big enough number that we wanted to take a look at, instead of continuing the lease, to actually purchase a unit. And then the other one is a envelope folding counter.
A folding
Folder?
machine for the belts.
Folding machine for the, that is roughly $1,800, and that makes up almost
So
half
that's
of it.
part of
It
this
is.
number, okay.
So what falls under public works supplies?
So there is a folding machine that we used to go over to Hilldale to use, because we spend roughly, I think some of the gals in here have volunteered 5 to 6 hours a day folding bills and et cetera. And the machine can do it in about 15 seconds, I'm told. But it's an $1,800 purchase, but I think 1/4 labor pays for it. And it's just gonna get worse.
That was
Down
part of
growing.
it. That was
It
part of
is
this.
$1,800 approximately. So if you have $1,800 for that and $400 in office supplies, you're really gonna look at $1,000 increase for the year.
Okay. Explains that. Everything else is like it's.
Sounds good, last, do we?
Percentage not might be a little low on some of them.
I feel kind of old, haven't used it. Mr. Stairs that old, but I don't know. Any more questions on the,
No,
budget?
not for me.
In public comment for this, correct? So any more questions for you, suggestions? We'll open it up for public comment. If you come up, state your name, ask questions about the budget. You could come forward and state your name, please. Richard?
No, I have
Oh, I thought you were opening
general
your arm.
public comment.
I thought you was opening your arm, raising your arm. Anybody online have any questions or comments for the public hearing portion? Going once, going twice? Nobody? Okay, we'll close the public hearing comment section. Okay, we'll go to item 2 then, discussion of possible action in adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022. Do we have a motion?
I move we adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022.
Second,
Second?
vote begin with Paul.
Aye.
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 Aye. Carries 4-0. Item 3, discussion of possible action on appointing a town attorney. Okay, if you go to page, there,
Page 7.
Galleon, page 9, actually on mine. I think they're double-sided, so.
Well, we're at page 7, page 1.
You'll see a resume from Galleon Welker Beckstrom LC. This is a letter resume and references for Mr. Dayton Hall, Hurricane, Utah. While I have not known Mr. Hall, I've known some of his family, and I've known Mr. Galleon from Galleon Welker. And I'm just going to simply wrap it up and say he comes very well qualified and very well recommended. I've spent the last 30 days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks interacting with Mr. Hall, and he's been generous enough to almost donate his services. He told me I had to buy him a taco with that neighbor. I think I volunteered to buy a taco, but he's been willing to help us out to get through this while we go through this transition of taking action to possibly hire him as a town council. And I've enjoyed working with him. He's been spot on. He's been quick. He responds quickly. He's thorough. He gives you more data than you're really asking for. You ask for a yes or no question, you get a 2-page answer. So I kind of like that. But any questions about Mr. Hall? Any questions for him personally?
I have a few.
Okay. Please come forward.
There's just a few. They won't
Sure.
be too drastic like the last time. I'm just curious, why do you want to work for the town of Apple Valley?
I grew up in Virgin, Utah, just on the other side of the mesa. And I like this type of work. I like working for communities. I'm in land use, I'm a real estate attorney, but I also have worked for Santa Clara, I've worked for Rockville. I donate my time as the chairman of the Hurricane City Planning Commission because I like solving problems, land use problems. And if I can get paid to do it, that's all the better. So that's why I'm familiar with Apple Valley. I like this area, and I like the area of law that you guys are asking me to help you with if you decide to hire me.
Can you tell me anything about the past history of this community?
I know it was incorporated in 2004. Before that, it was unincorporated in Washington County. I know that there were 2 attempts to try to disincorporate it that were unsuccessful. Those are kind of broad strokes. Other than that, were there something more specific
No,
you're
I'm
looking
just
for?
curious what you need
So,
about the town.
yeah.
I'd like to comment on that too, because I asked him a couple of questions about, in my interview process, about some of our history or how you deal with some of these things and where there's personality conflicts or people he knew or didn't know. And I was impressed by his answer because his answer was, I'm not here to engage in those type of issues. I'm here to give you the perspective from the law, and that's it. And I was really appreciative to hear you say that, because we do tend to get or drug down into the emotions of things sometimes.
If I can comment on that, Mayor, I am not the policymaker as the town attorney. This is a legislative body. You guys set the policy, you make those decisions. My job is to make sure that when you make a decision, that you do it the right way, that you do it legally, and that it has the backing that if it's ever challenged, that the challenge is unsuccessful.
We would like to stay out of trouble.
That's my job, is to keep you out of trouble.
That's
And
good.
so,
So if I call you and I have a question about something, that's okay?
Yeah.
I'll make it short, because I looked at your wage there, so it'll be very brief.
that's right. And my understanding is, and you can see from my letter of representation there, where I tried to detail the scope of employment, the scope of a
I did read through
relationship,
that, which I was good with that.
that you're not asking me to come to every meeting. You're not asking me to review the packet, every month and spend hours and hours. I'm going to be available as a resource to you, so that when you have a specific question, you need a specific resolution drafted, that I'm available to spend the time to get you an answer to your question. And I'll only charge you for the time that I spend on the matters that you asked me to spend.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
And it's only because I need some clarification for myself, because there's lots of rumors going around, so I just want to know what really took place. I was told that you previously have represented some of the citizens that have had some claims or complaints against the town and the council. And if so, I'd like to know if this is any possibility that there's a conflict of interest here because of that.
It's a good question and a fair question. The only issue that I've been involved with, as far as adverse to the town, was a matter involving Buddy James. And I'm not disclosing anything that's not a public record.
Well,
Like
okay,
that's,
just-
that's a court case. You can go look it up. But it was an issue with the drainage. The drainage was redone by the town. Ensign Engineering did that. And there was the drainage was concentrated onto Mr. James's property.
I was here through all that.
Okay. And so I represented him. A lawsuit was initiated. The lawsuit was dismissed. It's now resolved. That is, in my mind, no longer a conflict.
It was not resolved.
The lawsuit was resolved, but
So,
Okay.
I no longer work for Mr. James, and so I don't know.
no, that's it.
Mike, you have any questions?
I don't, I'm good.
Paul?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hall, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to point out that Mr. Sarah had pointed out something about the cost of his cost. There's been no increase in what we're previously spending. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of Mr. Hall as town council.
I make that motion.
Go a second.
Second.
Vote beginning with Paul.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Welcome. We appreciate your help.
Okay, thank you.
Carries 4-0. Okay, item 4, discussion of possible action on appointment of town council member for vacant position. All right, let's go back here to these.
Does he have to do the oath of office before we move on?
Sorry?
Does he have to do the oath of office before we move on? Or is that not necessary?
No, he doesn't
He
do
does.
it.
Does count
That's for the
council.
council, yeah.
Did you print out this? So I have to tear it out of my packet?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay, all right. I'm just gonna call your name real quick. You just hold up your hand, so make sure you're here. Diane Mason Walters. I remember that. Marge Sosky, she's here. Roger Ashmore, he's here. And Andrew Sadler, there he is. And Mr. Lisby is here. Okay. We will start with Mrs. Walters. Is it? Welcome.
Do I
So-
just get to talk?
Pretty much so, yeah. So I think everybody knows Mrs. Walters, and we've gone through our questionnaire list when we had the mayor appointment. So we'd like to open the door for you to just
Sorry, it was
speak.
so grueling last time.
Speak.
Thank you so much. So when I was here back in April, I came with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hope, and I spoke from my heart. I hope that you felt the authenticity and the truth of what I was saying and the type of leader that I want to be for this town, whether it's on the town council or the mayorship. And today I'm kind of more reflective. A lot has happened in my work life this week. I had to fire 2 employees because they did not uphold the core value that I have at my business for service. And so I said, how can I serve this town as a town council member and do it well? I don't have Mr. Betta's expertise in development. I, don't have your history of working on the town council. You've been here for a while, Mr. Edwardson. I know Mr. McLaughlin and Mr. Sayre. You've all been on the town council for a while, so I don't have that experience. I will come and I will ask questions and I will learn from you. When the planning commission puts forward something for recommendation, I'm going to listen to them because that's what their job is. If they have someone on the planning commission that dissents and doesn't support something, I'm going to go to that person. I'm going to ask them, what are your issues? What are your concerns? And listen to that person. And then most likely, if the majority of the planning commission members have voted to support something, I will vote to support something because that's their role. And then if I have questions, my role is to ask questions. As far as the future goes, I'm going to run for mayor. I've already told you I'm going to run for mayor. And I believe that both of you gentlemen, and I think you did too, Mr. Beto, said that you recognize my capabilities, you recognize my experience in the field of management and leadership, and that you would support me in that effort. So I'm going to ask you to appoint me to the town council because these next months are going to set up one of your candidates in the best position possible to be a good leader for this town. What better way to present the residents of this town with someone that can be a good leader moving forward? Now, I know that we have other candidates tonight, and one is Mr. Lisenby, and he has experience as being the mayor. But he said on his application that he came in those first days and put in 35 to 40 hours a week and learned so much. That's what I intend to do on the town council. I don't know everything coming in, but I intend to put in the time to learn what I need to learn to then be able to be an effective contributor to our town government. I am so thankful that you guys took the effort to do this forensic research on the accounting, because that has been a major point of division in our community for, I want to say, 2 years, major point of contention. And I'm afraid that even some of your opinions have been shaped by things that were said about the SSD and the members who run and operate that district. And unfortunately, that is going to take a lot of time to rebuild that trust. And so we need to put somebody in here like me that can instill that trust back in the community. One of the things that I learned when I was a child growing up, and it's from the foundation of creation, is that the first principle is to persuade, not coerce. We were persuaded, not coerced, from the foundation of creation. And that's a principle I will bring to this role. I will persuade the residents. If something we support has merit, I will persuade the residents that it has merit. I will not attempt to coerce anyone. We're going to reason with our residents. We're going to help them understand why something is important, how it will benefit their lives, not just tell them this is what we're doing. That's the direction I want to take as part of this town council, to work with you to accomplish that goal. And I will say, I haven't been to town council meetings. I told you before, this is a newfound passion for me. It's a newfound commitment. It is a newfound priority for me, but it is a priority. I'm here tonight, I'm running for mayor because it is a priority. And I hope that my newfound priority can then be shared with other people and they will be that priority. But in doing that, I did read back through the minutes. And I do want to tell you some of the things that I saw. There was a lot of talk about cargo trailers, RVs. There was a lot of talk about, for whatever reason, wiener pigs.
I'm sorry, we were what?
Wiener pigs? Do you remember those discussions?
Oh, wiener, I thought you said we are pigs.
No.
I'm a hog, I'm a pig.
There was a lot of discussion about wiener pigs at one point. And so, but what I got from reading through all of that information is that everything is really about people. Hearing them, listening to them, responding to them. And that's what I'll bring to this position as town council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Sosky. You would please. Oh, they'll say, oh, great, come up here with fire and energy.
Here we are again. I don't know how many times I've been at this podium trying to get on this town council. It's just like Groundhog Day. You know, it keeps going around and around the same time loop. But, you know, I thought to myself, what can I do do different to get selected tonight? And the only thing I could really think of is maybe I need to change my gender identity and become a male. That might even give me a vote. Or maybe I need to have a checkered background. That obviously gets votes. But I should try, but I'm going to be myself and a vocal voice in this town. And that means I'm a bully. As our previous candidate over here, Mayor Lisenby, called me. It is obvious, since our former mayor has submitted his name as a candidate, the story's coming full circle. Let's give credit to some of these candidates. They have more balls than some members on the town council for coming here tonight knowing the fix is in, but is standing here seeking a position they know they have a snowball's chance in hell of getting. The story, in case a lot of you don't know it and are unable to keep up with the changes, Councilman Bass quit and former Mayor Lisenby orchestrated and championed Mr. Beto for the town council position. He gets a glowing endorsement in the St. George newspaper. Town Council Edwardson and McLaughlin and former Mayor Lisenby all voted for him, knowing he has a horrible financial background. We're told no felony charges, so everything's okay. Then Councilwoman Kopp quits. Kevin Stayer is selected against the wishes of former Mayor Lisenby. Then Mayor Lisenby quits. Once again, Mr. Beddoes is voted into the position of mayor by town council member McLaughlin and Edwardson, knowing his background. Now the former mayor is seeking a town council position. This is just crazy to me. I think somebody's a master manipulator here. And I don't fall into that category. I'm not good at manipulating people. What you see is what you get. But I think the manipulators here could win a Caesar of Survivor even without an immunity idol. Something smells fishy to me, and I don't know about the rest of you. Does this town really want this kind of politics? And Mr. Edwardson, as a former member of the law enforcement community, didn't you cringe at his past, Mr. Beddoes' past? I know the detectives I've worked with would have. If any of you men, that's all of you, on the town council still has any balls, this is the time you can redeem yourself. Y'all, you speak of wanting to bring the town together, but it's more divided than when we had the Apple Dumpling Gang and in the administration and the Apple Dumpling Teleportation Group wanting to disincorporate. Maybe the Apple Dumpling Teleportation Group was onto something. All I'm going to say is look at the resumes, backgrounds, and values of each of these candidates. Give someone who has not been on the town council a chance. Someone who did not quit, but someone who did not quit. Go against the current, vote your conscience. Tonight is the night you can regain trust of the residents. If being part of a good old boy politics is what you want, then don't vote for me. The town needs to regroup and let citizens have a voice on who represents them. The time for putting in a building moratorium in place until we have a vote. If the fix is truly in, then the citizens need to take action. The 4 Ds, dissolve, disincorporate, dissolution, and destroy the gang is going to be on. Apple Valley is already the joke of the county, so don't make us a laughing stock of the state. Do you really think Hollywood could have written a script like this in this town? Any questions? And I'm more than happy to answer them.
I have no questions, but I do want to make a clarification. You made a reference to the fact that the fix is in. I want to make very, very clear. Most of you can attest to the fact that the package was not available to the public until yesterday morning. One of the reasons being was that in the past, some of the accusations that Mrs. Wasowski has just made about the fixes in the Good Old Boy Network. In my attempt to keep that from repeating itself, if it did in fact happen, was to keep this board from collaborating in conversations about who they're going to vote for and who they're not going to vote for until the night of this meeting. So Taylor did not release that package until yesterday morning in an attempt. We can't stop people from talking, but we wanted to try to curb and prevent council members from being able to go sit underneath the tree somewhere and collaborate about who they want. Now, council members are entitled to talk about their opinions, talk about their challenges, and look for answers and solutions for the problems we have. I want to be very, very clear that this office made every effort possible to keep that collaboration from happening as she had indicated occurred. Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Wasowski.
You're welcome.
Mr. Roger Ashmore.
I just want to say, I've had a felony, and I was voted into office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
This
at
is
you.
not public comment, guys.
So,
Roger could address the council.
yeah, I apologize.
It would help.
So, questions?
Roger, you served as a planning commission, as a city council member before, under what mayor?
Mosier, probably the most hated.
Mosier. Okay.
I do have a question for this board. If you are,
That is not true. A felony can run for public office. There are stipulation conditions by which they meet, that they must meet, but a felon can't hold public office. And I appreciate Mr. Ashman for pointing out his personal life history. And whether it's necessary or not is up to him to decide, but I appreciate the action you took. That can happen, whether he meets that qualification or not, we'll have to determine. But I had a question I was alluding to before I got interrupted on that. No, it's okay. I'm old. I lose my train of thought. Were you here as council member when the Gateway project was passed, or was that before your time?
Which project?
The entryway, roadways, the mailbox and stuff out here. Were you part of the council then?
Yeah, I was probably the only one that was against the mailboxes. I would have rather had a fishing pond.
A fishing pond?
Yeah.
Why were you against the mailbox services?
Really wasn't. It was more of a cost. A cost that was going to put in. There was a lot of, at that time, there was a lot of a dispute about who owned what property and everything else. And it was,
I think you're referring to the argument from Mr. Googler. Grant?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, my thing was we could have gone with mailboxes in a different way. Yeah, we could have gone a fishing pond.
In hindsight, after that has gone through, has it proved to be, in your opinion, a valuable asset?
I do.
You change your position?
as time went by, I kind of like it. I get my mail there. It's a lot easier getting my mail there than where I was getting my mail.
Okay,
A
you brought
lot safer. Kids are being picked up at the mailboxes for school. So it's an asset, and it actually beautified. The design of it is awesome.
Okay, we brought it up, and I'm glad you did, because that was one of my questions, because if I remember correctly, which is not often, is that you did have some opposition to it, and we are faced with the same need today in Cedar Point. We need a second mailbox system up there. And I just wondered where you stood on it, if you had in fact recognized the value of it, or you still held that position.
Cedar Point is growing. I know they only have 2 spots that are that they're able to get mailboxes. I think 1 location would be nice.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Ashmore? Yep, Mike?
What's his name again?
Roger Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Ashmore. You can have a seat. Andrew Sadler. Hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yep.
I only know he's Andrew. So, welcome. Appreciate you coming out.
Okay, I know this town's been having situations requiring people to keep the seat still. And so I decided, since I've read a book, Extreme Ownership, and after reading that, I've got to do what I can to make this town the best it can be. And I really didn't plan to speak there. Any questions?
What makes you qualified to be on town council, do you think? Andy?
Well, I have been to many meetings in the past. The only reason why I stopped coming is because my sister became too ill and she needed more of my attention than I had. And so, and I also looked at finding solutions. And when someone disagrees with me, I want to understand why, so that between the 2 of us, we can come up with something that will benefit even more people, if possible.
What do you think our #1 problem is in town? If you had to pick one, what would be the first thing you'd tackle?
Probably stability in the town council, or I should say town leadership, not just the council.
Okay.
Do you have a vision for the town? Where'd you like to see the town go?
I'd like to see this town grow sufficient, not too quickly, just enough to where we can adjust as it grows. And that way, main highway can be enlarged and become safer.
Will somebody check to make sure that wasn't Junior Falling? Thank you, sorry.
And
Sure it wasn't, but make sure.
one of the best ways for the expansion is get businesses in. Otherwise, the revenue has to come from the residents. And well, like me, a lot of residents can't afford any tax increases. So.
So that opens up a pretty broad can of worms.
Yes.
Because, and I'm gonna take my mayor hat off, speak as a resident.
Okay.
So every time I come around the curve down there and I see Smithsonian Butte, I see the national park over here, and I see our flip lines down here. You know, I'm a huge fan of our landscaping up here, and I'm not excited about seeing a whole ton of development come into my community where I live. I live up here because I like the small town atmosphere. I like the open landscape. But we also have needs in the town, whether we like it or not. We as a species, we procreate, we grow, we develop, we nurture. So where is that fine line occur? We have needs for water, sewer, and roadways in this community, and my fourth is bus stops. I don't like my kids getting off next to a highway. I want kids to go somewhere and be picked up or even closer to their homes, me personally. Now, I speak as the mayor, the only way we can pay for those things is really three primary. There's other ways to do it. Three primary ways to pay for it is you can tax the heck out of the residents and let them pay for the roads and water streets. Or you can borrow money, you can tax the heck out of the people to pay for the borrow money for the roads and streets. Or you can let Dell Development come in and let them pick up the lion's share of the cost. And there is where the conflict begins.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I stand alone when I say that our natural landscape and open space is our greatest probable asset. So we just recently had a situation, for example, where an applicant who's here tonight wanted to develop his property, and there was a referendum filed, which the residents are entitled to do, and we support. But there was a referendum filed in an attempt to try to discourage or even possibly stop that development, or at least take it to a public vote on, rather than have the council support it. This is the very essence of our challenge: is that how do we grow? How do we support ourselves, and how do we sustain ourselves without creating a big development monster? Because while this is our natural landscape, he's a landholder. He's a landholder. He's a landholder back there, and there's a conflict between property rights and control of development. I am a developer, but I develop downtown where everybody else wants to build and everybody else wants to live. But I hear these statements of you can control growth, you can control development. I'm telling you right now that last week we received an offer on our property for $25 million with a small chunk of ground that we gave roughly $800,000 for. Now, I don't care how much I'm in favor of slowing down growth, if somebody offers me $25 million, I'm taking it. Same way with him, the same way with him and that other landowner. So where is the fine line? If you can't control it, you can't stop it. How do you as a council member feel like that, we can plan for the future? Where is the, I know it's a broad question, but
Yes.
how do we harness that? What is the vision for this town?
Well, we all moved here because of the open space, and well, there no businesses on any less than 1 acre. That should help for the smaller businesses to have open space there, and for bigger businesses. But I do know that because we're so close to Zion, we can't have a big Walmart because no big box stores can be allowed in here because we're too close to a national park. So that helps. But other things where we can have plenty of open space for businesses, like camping sites. I mean, this is, whether we like it or not, this is a tourist area. And if we focus on tourist type businesses, that might be able to help.
Okay.
Precise details would have to be worked out.
Well, our only commercial component in town is the Chevron gas station. I spoke to Jan last week, and she said something similar. And I would have to conclude by saying, I wish we could get all those tourists come up here and dump their money and then leave.
Yeah.
We can't do that. And I think a little bit about what you're saying is create an element of business and opportunity here that does not include Walmart, does not include the Big Smith grocery stores. I know a couple of applicants have come in and talked about doing small farm and market type grocery stores as opposed to big box grocery stores. So I appreciate those comments. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will move back to Mr. Lisenby. I believe next on the list. Yeah, Mr. Lisenby. Welcome.
Hi. So the reason I want to be on town council is I think I still have a lot to offer the community. I resigned as mayor to give myself, get away from 40 hours a week and to have some more time for myself. But as you guys know, on council, it requires a meeting a month, maybe two. And with some extracurricular assignments, maybe a little bit more than that. But not having the 40 hours phone calls from anything between, 7 a.m. to about 11 o'clock at night, it's been kind of nice for 2 months.
I thought it was just me that filled those calls.
So, but at the thing that I offer the community is just the massive amount of hours that I've spent between, he was just talking about planning. I've been through seminars on planning to help learn about how important that is, having a commercial area and how vital that is to different communities to have a commercial district, because that commercial district is what pays our bills in the future. I've been through hundreds of hours with our attorney, and Mr. Hall was speaking a little bit to that when you're talking about land use and understanding what in the case of Sean Guzman, he was helping draft or direct some of that legislation, and we had that pipeline to him to be able to learn what some of the intent of some of the laws were and where some of the lawsuits are pushing, which directions, so we can know how we can navigate to stay out of that. And all those things all interplay into the decisions we made on the council and me as mayor. And what I always try to do as mayor is to find that middle ground that most people are happy with. You have those on the far left and the right of any situation. And that's why we went out and I put out surveys to ask, how do you feel about the RVs? How do you feel about storage containers? How do you feel about different issues, wiener pits included? So we could draft those ordinances based on what the feedback of the community were when we're trying to manipulate something. It's important. And so I always look for that feedback, and we always look for the mainstream of what someone wants to do, or, try to find out, is it weighted in any one direction based on the feedback of the communities? I think that's who we work for. It says we the people in the Constitution. And we the people doesn't mean just one or two of your neighbors. It means what does the majority of people want to do? And that's where I always try to live. I always try to conduct the decisions based on that. It's easy for someone to say that, we need to listen to the people. And it's easy to forget that one of the persons that you're supposed to be listening to is the guy that owns that property. It's the guy that also has just as much of a vote, or should have just as much of a voice when they're doing something that's appropriate with that property. And I agree. We don't need a Walmart up here. This, a lot of communities just don't even like Walmarts because of the taxation stuff there. Anyway, I have spent, without a doubt, I'm probably the most qualified candidate that's here with the experience that I have had and as mayor. I still am serving the town. Some of you don't know that, but I still manage helping out with the building permit process and looking up the ownership and the zoning and different components. Do we have everything in on the building permit and approving those? I'm still doing that right now. I've reviewed on occasion even lot split applications, because I'm the one that knew how to do them, and I've even been helping that. So even though I am the mayor, and when we had these some recent issues on even the audit that for the water district, as soon as I saw the numbers, I said something's wrong. I mean, you gotta find out what's wrong, because there's no way that those numbers can be right. And so we pointed them in the right direction on some of that stuff, but it hasn't gone away. My desire to serve the community has always been there, and that's what I feel like I've done.
Questions, Paul? Go.
I've got one or two. Some of this is just for my own personal information, Marty, because I've always wondered, but you already answered some of my questions that I had, so that's good. When I was the mayor pro temp and a town councilman many years ago, we had a 25-year plan filled out for the community and the SSD all together. And the Cannon project was by far the top priority.
You mean Cannon Spring?
Cannon, sorry, yeah.
The spring from.
While you were in office, and even the other previous mayors before you, so I'm not accusing anybody of anything, I'm just curious where or how that priority got changed and where we're in the predicament that we're in today. Maybe you can shed a little light for me on that?
Sure. Or you're talking about the accusation that I canceled the project.
I don't,
Would that be-
I'm not
would that
making
be-
that
would that be
accusation. I'm just asking you
accurate?
what happened. I'm not making any accusations that you canceled anything.
The thing that I was
Asking why
passionate
you
about
were
when I was
there.
first mayor was having a bookkeeping stay here to help save money. And that's one of the actions I took off the bat. But it's interesting. So this was, just to get the time frame down for everybody, it was September 6th, 2018, that I was put in as mayor. And in February of 2019, well, we had meetings and we were told that the pipeline, we can't get information right at that time. If you go back and look, I think it was December and January, the government was in a shutdown at that time. And I remember getting a report in the water district meeting that we can't get any information right now on the pipeline. That because they're shut down, they're not working, and we can't get any information. In February, I went to a water convention, and so this is February 2019, and USDA is there in a booth. And so I started asking questions and found out Pam at the time was the one that was in charge of that. And I went up to Pam and says, Pam, how long does it take to get an approval on this pipeline? It seemed like we've been waiting for quite a while. And it's just, well, you got to apply first.
So we hadn't applied.
Haven't even applied.
So you're saying
And
that.
so we're thinking that day by day, we're going to get an answer. The application hasn't been in.
So are you saying the town itself applied for that?
No,
District.
the district hasn't even applied. And I went to Harold, I went to Ross, and I says, he's telling us that we've got to wait for these answers from these people when they get back. And we haven't even put an application in. They got nothing to even look at.
I want to clarify, it wasn't Ross and Harold that was responsible.
No.
Rod Mills.
It was just me
Right.
relaying that information to them,
Okay.
that let's hire a different engineer because this isn't, we're not getting things done.
Okay.
And that
so-
happened early on in my time as.
Thank you for explaining that. I've always been curious. I got one more question. With that said, where do you think we should go right now? Because we have such an emergency situation going on in Cedar Point.
Well, as mayor, I had a meeting with USDA, with Harold Merritt, out on site at Canaan. And we talked to the new people. Rachel's her name, I believe. Could be Raquel, but that's our word, Rachel.
And this was roughly about February this year, correct?
This is about 3 months ago. Actually, the reason they were in town was the same conference a year later. So it was the water board conference in February. So that was the time frame. Because that's why they happened to be in town. They drove from the conference up here to meet us on site. And so we took a look at things, and it was, I've encouraged Harold Merritt on a few occasions, let's hire a large company. Didn't have to be Sunrise, but similar to Sunrise in that they have different departments that handle funding. Another one handles they have specialized groups of people that handle just the nuts and bolts of the impact studies. And, you got to study, are there any of these birds and all these, studies that have to be done. I says, let's hire these guys. I had asked Sunrise, how long does it take to get that together? He says, we could have the application together with all the things that we have to have in 90 days. So that's over 90 days ago. That thing could be in for funding, and they said probably funding within an additional 90 days.
Is this through the town?
District.
No, this is through the district. If the district had taken our advice,
what kind of dollars?
this could have already been done.
What kind of dollars?
Well, that was the other part of it. Rod Mills have been talking about $1.5, $1.6 million in loan grant kind of combination. And Sunrise hadn't had all the details, but they said.
Let me clarify that. It was $1 million in grants and $5 to $7,000 along as it reported to me.
Yeah, I was
Make
just
sure
saying
we
it's,
got the
it's
number right.
mixed. When I took the training with them, they said it was a 45-55 split, but there's other funding possibilities out there. You know, if you go through FEMA or there's other possibilities. So I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with the money other than the amount seemed high compared to what Sunrise thought is 700,000 would be more appropriate if we have to put in a $200,000 pump station to move that water. That's
You're
about
talking
what it
from the
should be.
Canaan Springs to the million-gallon tank?
Right. Yeah, for about 800,000.
Okay, now, so I have just one more quick question, and then I'll be done. So can you tell me where the SSD is in their loans that they have? I've been told 100% grant, and they're just about in the process to finish all that. So are you involved in any of that at all?
You know, for the last 2 months, I haven't been to the meetings to know exactly. The last I heard, yeah, there was going to be a grant of 900,000, but I was right there when Rachel also said that it's not normal that they ever fund pipelines. And it could be because of a certain situation and we're in dire straits. Maybe they're making an exception. So I'm not going to say that they're not being truthful on that. I have not, I just know that the last I heard in the last meeting for the water board, Rod Mills said that the application isn't even in yet.
And that's to date.
So, any other questions?
What?
I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you.
All the right questions answered. Thanks.
All righty, thank you, everyone.
Okay, before we start the vote,
Yep.
I just want to be very, very clear on where I stand as far as what was said earlier. I don't regret any of my votes that I made from up here on any candidate that has come before. I don't regret voting for Daley. He's on the ground running. He's working 30, 40 hours a week on behalf of Apple Valley. And the things that he's doing are quite amazing, and he has a lot of knowledge about how to get things done. Do I regret that vote? No, I don't. The bottom line for me is who can do the job right now for Apple Valley? Another bottom line is who can save us the most money so that the residents of the town don't have to be burdened by more and more onerous taxes. How can we get that done? Those are my bottom line. It's not personality. I could give a rat's butt less when somebody writes in the St. George newspaper about Apple Valley. I could care less. I really don't care. I haven't read any articles. I don't care. What I want is to get things done for Apple Valley. I believe in property rights. I believe that people should be developed. I believe that just because I'm here on my red and yellow house up on a hill, I should not disallow other people from enjoying what I enjoy. Those are my bottom lines. So the people that voted for me, quite a few, are probably not in this room. Those are the people I represent. I want that reflected. If I vote for somebody, it's going to be the person who can get the job done right now. Period. You can call me a gang if you want. I don't care. I'm getting a real thick skin about being a politician. It doesn't bother me at all.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? Yep. Okay. We'll begin our voting process first with, I think the order was Mrs. Walters, wasn't there? Are you first? Vote beginning with Mike.
Yes, no.
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
So, just to be clear, I'm pretty sure the way we vote is everyone goes around and they say the candidate name that they are voting for.
Yeah.
And then in the second vote, we narrow it down to who had the most votes, the top two candidates who had the most
I
votes.
thought we had to go individually and total up. and then
No,
compare
no, we
to
go
the
to each council member, they name out who they're voting for.
We'll get this
Okay.
right.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning then. Mike, who you vote for?
Marty Lisenby.
Okay.
Mason Walters.
Take my time. Mr. Lisby.
Marty, yeah, of course. Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
not, guys, come on.
Oh, please.
We can open up
What
a
is-
comment
We're not
there.
stupid. What a scam. You guys don't care about unity in this town
Guys,
at all.
guys, please refrain from post comment. 3 votes for Mr. Lisby, 1 vote for Ms. Walters. Mr. Hall?
You have to do that food, so we have to go. You have to do a second vote.
Second vote.
Yeah, so the second vote, now we narrow it down just to Mr. Lisby and Ms. Walters. Mrs. Walters.
Okay,
Taylor's right.
I know the answer. I want you to say it for the public. Get my hands. That's what Sean used to tell me. Read my hands. Mr. McLaughlin.
Marty Lisby.
Mr. Stair.
Mason Walters.
Marty Lisenby.
Marty Lisby.
There you go.
Same old. Good boy, you tell them. You guys are unbelievable, really. You
I'm
should
gonna
be
ask-
ashamed of
I'm
yourself.
gonna ask.
You
the
should
la-
be ashamed of
I'm going to
yourself.
ask the last time to refrain from public comment. I will not ask again,
What are
Richard.
you gonna do?
I'm
Beat
gonna
my
remove-
ass?
I'm gonna remove you from the meeting, okay? Please, it doesn't have to go down this avenue. I appreciate your frustrations. You can voice your comments and get public comment, okay? I appreciate it. Thanks. Sorry to touch you that way. Mr. Hall? I think this concludes the vote. We'd like to welcome Mr. Lisby to the town council. We'd like to have him take oath of office at this time, if you would, sir.
I know.
Okay. All right. Please be quiet. Thank you. Please be quiet. Thank you. Anyway, please repeat after me. I, Marty Lisenby,
I, Marty Lisenby,
having been appointed to the office of town council member, do solemnly swear
having been duly appointed town council.
one more time, here, we're not complicated. So having been appointed to the office of town council member,
Having been appointed the office of town council,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Utah.
and the Constitution
Hey,
of the
can we
state
keep,
of
Please
Utah.
be
we're trying
quiet.
to do a vote here. Can you please refrain from comment?
Thank you.
Are you able, you might want to redo it. I don't think we get.
Yeah, I can't hear, so we're gonna start over from the beginning. So please repeat after me. I, Marty
I.
Lisenby,
I, Marty Lisenby,
having been appointed to the office of town council member,
having been appointed the office of town council member,
do solemnly swear
Do
or
solemnly-
affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Utah.
and the Constitution of the state of Utah.
And I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Please sign right here.
Pages on these up here with the resumes. Mr. Sarah, borrow your, page agenda for me. We got the sheriff. Okay, item number 4, move to item number 5. Discussion and possible action on appointment of a pro tem mayor. for discussion?
I volunteer.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Any questions or comments, Paul? Nope. Question or comments, Mike?
Don't know if I'm ready to vote for who I want for pro tem at this time, but.
I'm not sure we're required to do it tonight, are we, Mr. Hall?
No.
Then I'm gonna make a motion that we table the pro tem mayor until we've had a chance to digest who the new council member is and be able to address, to investigate this a little deeper. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote beginning with Mike. Aye. Kevin? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll postpone to the next meeting to appointment of the pro tem mayor. Discussion and possible action on the future of the water board. We have before us item number 5, page 33. A resolution, oh, sorry, that's not a resolution, my apologies. Not page 33. Not an audit committee. Oh. We bring that back. Hold on, here's page 34. On the back. Forgot it's double-sided. Resolution 2021-18, a resolution of Apple Valley Town Council terminating its delegation to an administrative control board of its rights, powers, and authority related to the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District. Mr. Anderson, are you with us tonight?
Yes.
Did we just?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Anderson. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mark Anderson. Mark Anderson has been serving as consultant to the town for the last 30 days, I believe it is, or since I was appointed mayor. One of the biggest issues for the town council is equally important to finance and the finances of the district is to find some way to find a better solution system by which the town and the district can function, because it has been functioning poorly at best. Some of that is personal challenges between individuals. Some of it is not a clear understanding. Some of it is a desire for the district to want to operate independent of the town. There are a barrage of things, none of which are necessarily the single issue. We're going a little more, sir. Okay. Would you like us to wait for you?
Yes, that would be nice, please.
Okay. I'm gonna, in essence of time, I'm gonna continue on, just talk a little bit about Mr. Anderson. We brought Mr. Anderson in to help us do an evaluation of both the water district, the town's function, and the future of how to best service the community where we have our greatest avenue of being successful in gaining financing, both in grants, loans, CIB monies, FEMA monies, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Anderson, who is on with us, and I don't know if you guys can see him up here. He prepared a report for our office that I would like him to just briefly walk through. If you just give us a highlight of what you found in talking with the USDA, the Division of Drinking Water, and our town.
Mayor Beto, thank you. As indicated, I'm with Zions Public Finance, and we're an arm of Zions Bank that works specifically with governmental entities in helping them acquire the best access to funding at the best rates available in the different markets that we have access to. I've been aware of the challenges that the district and the city have faced for over a year with the finances of the Big Plains Special Service District, and have been asked to kind of evaluate, what the dissolution of the district.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark, I'm sorry, can we interrupt for 1 second, please?
we're missing one person, first off, but I wanted to add to that. I met Mark some time ago, probably a couple of years ago, I would say. And one thing that he was left off of his resume is he was also city manager. Was it Heber? What city was it?
I was the city manager of Heber City, which is the #1 new destination in Utah to live.
No, it's not Apple Valley.
For 20 years, and the finance director for 8 years prior to that. I've been with Zions Bank for the last 3 years. So I'm very familiar with how governments work. Briefly, I've met with, I've talked with USDA regarding the 2 loans that the Big Plains District has currently. They're both 2015 water bonds. The combined outstanding principal is about $2.4 million, between $2.4 and $2.5 million. The interest rate on the largest loan is 3.5%, and those bonds both mature in 2054. The other smaller loan, there's $278,000 and it's outstanding, and it has a 4% interest rate associated with it. And speaking with USDA, if the district were to be dissolved and the Apple Valley town chose to assume the debt, they are telling us that we could probably refinance that or assume the debt at a rate that's currently available on new loans of 1.75 to 2%. So if there's any reason to consider the city taking on the debt of the district, that would be the largest reason right there, is to get significant lower interest rate on those larger loans. I've also talked to the state. Yes.
And I want to make sure we're clear on that number. In our evaluations, the savings of interest for that over the duration of those loans is between 800,000 and $1 million, correct? 800.
Let me just open up that. Our estimated savings at 1.75% interest rate, assuming that the costs of issuance were incorporated into that. Just one second, I'm just opening up the document. We estimated we'd see savings upwards of $27,000 a year over the life of the loan. It's not cooperating, just one second. Okay. So cash savings, we could see as much as $897,000 in savings. Taking into consideration the time value of money, we often quantify it in net present value. Converting that back in today's dollars, that would be economic savings of approximately $681,000 if this refunding were to happen this fall and you were able to get a 1.75% rate versus something that's really closer to 4% based on the outstanding balances.
Okay,
so,
thank you. That's one clarification.
I think that from all indications that USDA could make a decision fairly quickly within a few weeks as to whether or not that they would accept that. Of course, the town's going to have to be able to show that they have the financial capacity to provide the required coverages that the bond documents require. And so that will take an evaluation of existing rates to make sure that there's adequate funds to make the debt service payment. I know that there's consideration currently because of concerns with drought and availability of water, that there's maybe some evaluation of those rates currently just because of potential shortages. The other debt that the district has the other debt that the district. Is there a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The other debt that the district has is approximately a little less than $2.5 million with the Utah Division of Drinking Water. Most of that is 0% loans, and they mature anywhere from 2021 through 2048. One loan has a 1% interest rate that is currently $328,000 that matures in 2048. All the other loans are non-interest bearing, the largest being one that has a little over $2 million in outstanding principal currently. I've talked to the Division of Drinking Water, Michael Grange, and they seem favorable to being willing to allow the debt to be assumed by the town if that's the direction that they choose to go. And they even seem favorable to considering additional applications for projects that because of the need that exists. But once again, we'd need to be able to show that there's adequate finances to make the debt service payments, which may require some adjustments to rates before the district could be resolved. The district couldn't be dissolved until all their debts were assumed. And so I'm really focusing on what it would take from a financial standpoint to move the debt over and look at other options for available funding to address system needs because some segments of the system are constrained based on the sources. There's 3 state agencies that the town or district could make application to that could give favorable financing. One's the Division of Drinking Water. Their next application deadline is June, but they won't hear the applications until the end of August. The next one's the Community Impact Board, which shows favoritism to those counties which are mineral producing, which Washington County is not. But they also are sensitive to immediate needs and sometimes are willing to grant funds to communities that wouldn't otherwise be looked at favorably based on what county they were in. Their next application period is the 1st of June, and they would listen to applications in July, August, and September and make a final determination on funding in October. The last one is USDA, and they accept applications anytime. Sometimes they require interim financing while the project's being constructed. And I've assisted, I'm assisting Kanab right now, and I've assisted Glendale with some of that interim financing, but it sounds like USDA may not require that if the loan is, below a couple $1 million. But they typically don't have grant funds available. You're more looking at a low interest, long-term loan in the 1 3/4 to 4% range. Mayor, what else would you like me to cover?
I think that's it. We're going to take it from here. I just wanted to give you a quick summary and introduce you to the public and let them know who we're working with. I think that's always important. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate your summary. And I know you're nurturing a grandkid's baseball game, so we're going to let you go.
Well, that's over, but thank you. And I'm just looking for direction from the council as to how we can best help you.
Okay, Mark, we do have one question for you.
So in our proceedings here, as we look at dissolving the SSD, we first have to assume, if I understood you correctly, we first have to assume that debt before we can dissolve the SSD. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are other legal things that have to be done that I'm not going to pretend to be the expert on, but for the district to be dissolved, the town has to absorb the debt, and then once the debt's been transferred, then the district can be dissolved. And there are other legal requirements to go through, but I'm sure there's public hearing notices, et cetera, that there'll be a process that'll have to be followed.
We have a follow-up question.
You said that the town has to be able to afford it. What does that look like?
Well, I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking at the coverage that existing. My initial impression is that the debt service coverage has not been met in past years. And I think a couple of years ago, there was a retained deficit. And so I see that there's been some changes in the last audit that were more positive than one previously. But if you're looking to do another project, we'll just have to look at what the criteria is. We're looking for net revenues, operating expenses minus operating revenues minus operating expenses being at least 125% of what your annual debt service obligations are. And so that's an analysis we'll do. And I've looked briefly at the budget. Some of that's dependent on impact fees, and that can they can change very dramatically based on what happens in the development world. And so we just need to make sure that the town's on solid footing moving forward, and it may require some increases in rates, but if you can save $27,000 just by refinancing the loan, that's a big savings per year that'll help offset some of those potential increased rates.
What kind of increased rates are you talking about?
You know,
Water rates, taxes?
I'm not really prepared to say that what rates might. I'm talking water rates, water revenues. We just need to make sure the revenues are adequate to satisfy whatever debt the town absorbs to meet the bond requirements that you already have as in the form of that the district already has.
Okay. Paul?
No.
Elizabeth? Okay, Mark, thank you again. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. I look forward to doing what I can to assist the community.
Thank you.
Bye.
I want to make it clear here that this is kind of a two-step process where our objective tonight is to discuss the action of replacing the board in the attempt that the council can achieve two items. And one is to try to eliminate the feuding between the two divisions and find some way to clean that up. Mr. Merritt is here tonight, and I can attest to you that Mr. Merritt has been working, and I have been working since probably before the holidays, probably around December, in an attempt to try to bring a greater working relationship between the town and the water district. It's been an uphill battle all the way for, as we said, for a variety of reasons. This council over the last 18 months and previous mayor, Mr. Lisenby, had kind of worked in this direction a little bit. They were very kind and considerate to kind of put this on the back burner before the holidays and give Mr. Merritt and myself an opportunity to try to find some way to merge together. I had stated repeatedly to Mr. Merritt, to Mr. Gregerson, the treasurer, Mr. Sayre, when he came on as a town council member, that the only logistical reasons for taking this type of action had to be for financial gain and greater service or equal service across the board to the community. And that's what the purpose of Mr. Anderson's report is to give you a clear picture of what is available to the town versus the district. In his report, it's very clear that the USDA will not refinance their own loans. They will only take this action if the debt is transferred to the town. So the only opportunity of us having the ability to save that $800,000 range of cost, $27,000 annual, is through this process of dissolvement, not replacement of the board. We are going to, if we elect to go this way, it would be to attempt to take the financial structure of the town and prepare it for its ability to absorb it, should that be the next step we take. So I want to make sure we're very, very clear on that. He pointed out, I'm glad that Mr. Sayre answered this, asked the question about whether or not the DDW would accept the transfer of the debt over to us to reduce this down. That That's the key to that we will determine in the next stage whether or not that we can qualify for that to get those funds. In addition to that, the capacity of the district in his report also states that they are limited in their ability to reduce these or gain additional fundings. One of the things that he addresses in here, and Mr. Cobb asked in the previous board meeting, was about the rumor he'd heard that there was a $10 million loan floating around out there. As you can see in his report, there's no such thing. There's no such loan being sought here. The only loan that I'm aware of is if Mr. Mills is not able to acquire all of his funding for the pipeline transfer, he may have to look at a small loan, which is typical, and I don't think he's in that mode yet. Mr. Merritt, would you like to come up?
I just stated from here that I met today with the head of the Division of Drinking Water from Salt Lake.
That'd
be Tim Davis.
Okay.
Dale Harris was there. There's some other people present. The funding that was requested on the first part we came in way under budget, and so that leads me to the question Mr. Lisenby had was about pipeline funding through that project. So that was broken in half, and some of that funding will be used for pipeline.
Do you know how much off the top of your head is available? Ballpark?
200,000. I do know that 900,000 is about 2 weeks away for the completion of the pipeline to the Canyon tank.
When you say the 900,000 is available, aren't we also being held up though in our county? We haven't completed that audit yet. Are they not holding that funds back?
Funds back for the
$900,000, are they also not saying that they're not going to release that until we finish that audit though?
No, we were told today that the environmental impact study was held back a week because of the COVID extension for the tribes.
Right.
So we're late on their letter, or haven't responded. Anyway, that was stretched out a week, but we were told about 2 weeks away from actual environmental impact review by the USDA and releasing of the funding document. That's the lingo, what it all means, I'm not sure, but basically it meant that money's in the pipeline to complete this project.
No pun intended?
No, it is in the pipeline.
Yeah. And I want to make clear too that should this board take any action tonight, it would not interrupt that process.
Yeah, that was, there was a lot of discussion with these people. As you've discussed it with them, they've gotten in touch with us, and so we're aware of at least part of what's going on. So I think we're partially in the loop, but I just wanted to clear up that the money is, for all intents and purposes, 100% grant, complete the pipeline to the Canyon tanks, or to the Cedar Point tanks at this point.
From the Canyon Springs.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Harold,
Public comment, please.
Yeah.
Public comment, please, Don. No, it's Tom, at the time of public comment. Sorry. You know, before we move for motion on this, is there any questions? Okay, no questions. So I'm going to make a statement. I want to very clear to the public. I've heard all of this back and forth, and I know it doesn't do any good to the public, but Mr. Merritt and his team has been great to work with from my perspective. I've enjoyed it, and you know, I hope this doesn't have any reflection on his entire team. It has nothing to do with that. I told Mr. Merritt at the beginning of the year that if I supported this, it would be because there was a financial gain for the town, and that's the only reason I'm willing to look at it. I'll entertain a motion. So, anyway. So the motion that's before us is a resolution 2021-18, a resolution of the Apple Valley Town Council terminating its delegation to an administrative control board of its rights, powers, and authority related to the Big Plains Water Special and Sewer Special Service District. I'm gonna read the first paragraph only. Whereas Apple Valley Town duly created resolution number 2011-25 and pursuant to the provisions of Article 11, Section 7 of Utah Constitution and Utah Code. I can't pronounce that word. Annotated. 117D-1-101. ETSEC, the special service district called Big Plains Water and Sewer Special District. That's basically, if Mr. Hall has it, I don't think he has anything, but if you have anything you want to add, it basically gives the town council the ability to replace the board with the town council serving as the board. That's the kind of the 10,000 foot statement, isn't it?
That is the 10,000 foot statement. We could go to 5,000 feet if you want me to.
No, I don't want you to. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
that we were.
that is
I want to make sure that we are in compliance with law.
The town has the authority as the body that created the special service district to retract that delegation of authority that it gave to the administrative board. And it can do that at any time.
As part of this process, we had also asked the board to serve in a committee capacity to continue working and overseeing the affairs of the district and the water district until we figure out which direction we go. They did decline to participate in that, so we will not have a committee at this point.
We won't have a committee?
Not at this point. They decided not to do so. Okay, so the motion would be.
Hold on, I just want to state for the case, I think this is premature what we're doing until we get the Canaan project all done.
The Canaan project is not interrupted, Mr. Sayer, through this process.
I don't know that for sure, but I'm just stating my opinion.
Okay,
I move that we pass resolution 20-21-18, resolution of the Town of Apple Valley Council terminating delegation to administrative control board for its rights, powers, authority related to Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District.
vote again with Mike.
I
Vote again with a second. Oh, I'm sorry, second. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, vote again with Mike.
Aye.
Kevin?
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Vote carried 4-1. Move on to misplaced my agenda somewhere. Let's see, we're on item number 8. Item number 8, discussion and possible action on resolution number R-2021-013 audit committee charter. Number 8. Which
Yeah,
one?
we need to table the appointments for water boards.
Oh, I jumped, yeah, I looked at that wrong one. Let me back up to item number 7, discussion and possible action on appointing a town council member to the water board. And Mr. Hall, I believe that is no longer necessary. Once we adopt the resolution, there is no board to appoint, correct?
It's not necessary by default, since
Correct.
that delegation to the service district has been rescinded. The town now is the default.
Right.
Governing body.
So therefore, we do not need to table it. It is in default, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I move that we table item number. Yeah, my agenda, so let's say.
It's not, we don't have to table it. It's by default, we don't have to take action on it. Correct.
That's correct. No action necessary.
So we'll move on to item number 8. Discussion of possible action on resolution number R-2021-013, the audit committee charter. Item number 8 is on page 37. Page 37. Audit committee or something else.
Hey, Dale, you have that some fun.
There you go. I don't know what I did with mine. I think Kevin took it, didn't tell me. Okay, any discussion or questions about the audit committee charter?
Yeah, how are you planning on deciding who is on that Can you give us a once over on that?
Well,
Who's this gonna be comprised of, how many members?
that's the
What
discussion
qualifications might they have, and so forth?
that's the discussion we're trying to get everybody engaged into. One of the big chance, make sure they read it.
Well, I read it and I don't qualify. Don't you need to have an accounting background?
You really do. And we are in the process of interviewing both a town accountant as well as a town administrator that we'll get to later. I personally, if everybody has read it, I don't know if you read it. If you have to be on.
I briefly scanned through it.
I would, my preference would be to hold off on this until we have a chance to bring that individual in and start the committee through that individual. Tom, I apologize. You can hang on a second. You can ask your question. Or did you want to go talk to her?
Well, yeah,
Okay,
comments are coming later, right?
Okay.
All right, I'll be back.
So I don't want to make the motion table it unless you guys want to talk about it.
Motion to table it.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Vote begin with Mike.
Aye.
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 Table item number 8. Discussion possible action on resolution number R-2021-014, adopting the financial policies.
There's a bunch of these in here. What, is this part of a result of an audit,
This is part of the result of,
cleaning things up kind of thing?
yeah, this is basically mainly housekeeping items.
What pages of them?
Page 75. This is where along this side.
That's credit card holders.
This particular one begins actually back on page
75.
No, we're on item number 9.
Then you're too far ahead.
Item number 9 begins back on page 42.
I've got to go there.
Yeah, I think I got mixed up there.
We got this thing
Mixed up.
in order somehow.
I'm actually gonna, there is some mistakes in here, or structural things.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion to table items 8, 9, and 10. Any objections, anybody want to make that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll have to make a motion first. I make a motion that we table item 8, discussion of possible action on resolution number R-2021-013 audit committee charter. I also make in that same motion, I could do 3 of them together, can I, Mr. Hall? Should I do separately? Probably should separately.
It's better if you do it.
Second.
Second.
Vote begin with Mike.
Aye.
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 I make a motion that we table item number 9, discussion of possible action on resolution number R-2021-014, adoption of financial policy.
Second.
Vote begin with Mike.
Aye.
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 I make a motion that we table item number 10, discussion of possible action on resolution number R-2021-015, a resolution establishing authorized credit card holders. Second.
Second.
Vote begin with Mike.
Aye.
Aye. Ed Paul?
Aye.
Okay, sorry to hear you. We have table item number 11, discussion of possible action on name change of Main Street. Is anybody not aware of this issue?
I did not know that.
So primarily, we share a zip code with Hurricane.
That part.
Oh, so
What's the,
we have not come up with a name, but the motion will be made to appoint a council member to research and come up with a name like.
Is it Old Boys Highway? Thank you, Richard.
before, it was Main Street, it was, Smithsonian View. I think it's Way. Smithsonian View Way. I think.
Rather than come up with a name, I would like to suggest that we make a motion to give that assignment to Mr. Sayer
Okay.
and to research and come up with a name
I
for that.
decline.
The primary reason is that we share a zip code with town of Hurricane. So whether duplicate names in the same zip code, the post office is not going to recognize Main Street because we were not there first. So we have two options, either rename Main Street and any other subsequent streets that may come up in the future, or we get our own zip code and we don't qualify, we don't have enough residents qualify for our own zip code. So for the meantime, we got to change our name, our Main Street name. We have a motion to appoint someone to that position. I make a motion to appoint Mr. Sayer. Do we have a second?
I said that I decline. He does not want it. I don't want to. Thank you.
Okay,
I'll do it.
make a motion that we recognize that Mr. Sayer is unwilling to participate, so therefore we'll recognize, make a motion that Mr. Lisenby accept the assignment of researching the name change for Main Street. Do we have a second? Both again with Mike?
Aye.
Sayer?
Aye.
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 Mr. Lisenby will receive that and carry the vote 5-0. Item number 12, discuss a possible action and development agreement with Travis Wells. Mr. Wells, sorry it took so long to get you here. Go through all of that. Item number 12. This is page number, it's like 83, guys. No, for that, sorry. Page 78. There were a couple of primary challenges with this development agreement, a typo issue, and there was a ordinance that wasn't being met. Was the primary items. In line item 4A, it states that the developer agrees to construct a paved roadway on the existing city road, Rome Avenue, with a 20-foot wide asphalt road for 1,150 feet from the end of the existing pavement to the north end of the west boundary, or in other words, northwest corner of the development. We do have an ordinance in our town that is greater than 20 foot, where you are not constructing a new road, you are simply improving the existing road. I'm going to suggest that we should not be bound by that ordinance. Mr. Hall, I think you can clarify. If you can clarify that it is an existing roadway. Our ordinance says that when you construct a roadway, it must be larger than that 20 foot. But the old standard for the town and the existing road that is there, we're asking him to not rebuild the street, but simply pave what is there, and that's currently 20 foot of asphalt. I'm suggesting that we if we approve this, that we make it contingent upon it meeting the existing standard of construction and match the existing width of the asphalt, whether it be 10 foot or 90 foot wide, as opposed to building a new roadway.
I'm coming into this cold here, so
Absolutely.
I don't
We're talking
know.
about the roadway that
Goes
goes
up the
up.
hill. Yeah.
Okay. My only problem with that is that we are doing improvements and expanding the traffic that's gonna be on that road with the problems that we have and the issues we
Okay.
have with that road.
Okay.
And so I don't think it needs to be to the standards it is right now. I think there's improvements that need to be made.
Okay.
Well, that was one of the main concerns people had was traffic increasing and danger of the road.
And
Well,
line of sight is
Well, good build we do. And I had also reported when we approved this project, I happened to go up there the day that there was snow here, and I parked my truck at the top of the hill. Without forward advancement, I simply parked my truck, come to a complete stop, and the slope actually moved my vehicle down the hill in the snow without any momentum on its own. But, we discussed this in the approval process. We did go look at it from an engineering grade standpoint. Your first response is, let's drop down the grade and soften up the slope. And so if you take the top of the hill, pull it down. But then there are the Walters house, and then that all of a sudden it dropped down below their household. There's existing water lines, everything would have to be dropped down to the town. Then you create a separation between their driveway and the roadway that becomes probably too steep for them. But the biggest one is the street on top where the cul-de-sac is, it's worse than the current grade. And if we do anything to drop the street's grade, then that incline becomes increased.
One thing you do is raise it, really.
Well, the issue doesn't seem to be the incline as much as the width of the road.
What about putting drainage, ditches on the right-hand side there where you can widen
You know,
out?
right hand as you're going up the hill.
Yeah, where you can at least grab that extra room there and add to it.
I'm not sure those ditches aren't already there because the water's collected on the south side and transferred to the north side.
Part of this containment is that.
Well, on this side going up the hill, you could possibly fill that all in with drainage.
Well, yeah, are you talking about on the left side of the road you're going up?
Okay,
Just the right side.
Just the right side.
okay. And I'm gonna play the devil's advocate. Y'all find the solutions. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate because that's what the engineer is telling me. So if we put drainage on the right-hand side, I don't know the homeowners at the very bottom of the hill, but that puts water directly into their properties now. So we have to contend with. So
Are you talking about the bottom of the hill?
yeah, on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah. Well, it goes there now.
It goes, well, actually it doesn't. There's a culvert that goes across the north side, to the north side. This goes back to part of the Buddy James's house issue. So it is a problematic issue.
And if we get a work meeting where we, town council goes there and we just all look at it.
As long as we bring an engineer and we do it individually.
We can bring in here too.
Yeah. The challenge here is,
Actually, we've done that in the past where we've had a town council meeting where we have the engineer and we meet here, we go off and we go off-site. to look at the issue.
Okay. And I'm all for that. The only challenge is we've approved this project with the idea that he was going to contribute asphalt. We didn't require him to rebuild the roadway. Now, this was a big discussion about the traffic because the other issue was that his secondary access needed to be large enough that when we went and did our drainage system, that could eventually become the primary road out to Main Street as it got developed
I
out.
understood that was quite a ways down the road too.
It probably is. It probably is. But the burden.
If we can at least go and take a look at it together.
Absolutely.
Together, at least then we can come to a consensus among all of us with it too.
Okay.
So if we drive down Rome Way or Apple Valley, you know, are those all 20-foot wide roads right now?
My understanding is that they were supposed to be 24 foot of asphalt, but the asphalt that I've physically gone out and measured was only 20 foot. I just did some random spots around town. So it was always reported to me.
I think they did that to stretch out the asphalt too at the time, because of what was happening with the cost, and they were trying to stretch it as far as they could.
Doesn't mean the easement's not there for a larger road. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be, but to every one of us, anybody who lives in this town other than Cedar Point, you know, faces that challenge where the spine of the road, as it is identified, less the bar ditches or the barrel ditches is only really designed to be 20 feet because we're using an enormous area. I think our code actually calls, don't quote me because I don't remember, but I think it actually calls for a 5-foot barrel ditch or a 5-foot aerial barrel ditch. And then all of a sudden we've reached the capacity of our easement right of ways from where the town was designed whenever we were designed 20, 30 years ago, different standards back then. So I'm simply stating, as again, from the devil's advocate point of view, is I find it real hard to put that kind of burden on a project of that capacity when they have demonstrated for the last 6 or 8 months that their negotiation has always been that they would pay for the asphalt improvement of the hillside. I think we have a great issue, but we think we have a greater site issue on that roadway when we do anything.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm asking that we go and we look at it together, and that way we can talk about it, look at it, and come up with ideas and try to make it as simple as we can for the applicant as well.
The applicant.
And I worry about the erosion there too. It could easily start shooting up the asphalt.
Yeah, that erosion has always been a challenge there on the
Yeah,
hillside. The engineer, if you'd like to come forward for the applicant, express any concerns or suggestions you might have.
Well, I'm Craig with Alliance Consulting, and we discussed this, we discussed the width. Like I said, some of the constraints is how tight that little hill area is. in areas that we can widen out, you know, I mean, sure, we want to help out and get as far, but there is some tight constraints as we come up that hill. So our intent was to do 20 feet after some discussion that, hey, we would like 24, we discussed it. As long as we want to help out and go a little wider if we need to and meet the city code for this road, but there are some areas that we might not be able to do that.
Yeah, there's areas we need to look at too, to make sure we're in compliance with what we're doing on the rest of it as well, so that we can meet what your needs are, but also for you to meet what we're wanting to accomplish too.
And as far as the width of the gravel road to the outside, some of the concerns that we meet fire code, as long as we're open to, you know, to meet the fire code requirement for that gravel road out.
So
Are you talking about coming from Main Street?
yeah. So we're doing the secondary access gravel out. We're gonna do a 6-inch thick out to Main Street through the easements that we've been able to obtain from the adjacent property.
And I think as when we get into the rest of it, I think what he's referring to is, I think it stated it was 20 foot, but Junior, correct me if I'm wrong, you need 25 or 26 foot?
25.
25 deep.
Yeah, that's just.
So it was just a width issue that we talked about.
Yeah, and we just stated it, I think in the development agreement, it's item
4C, I think it was.
4C, developer shall transfer, that's not it, that's it's B, developer should provide secondary access to Main Street, this roadway will be all-weather access road.
And because it didn't mention the width, as we talked earlier today, I wanted to confer with Junior that his code was 25, 26 foot.
And if that's what it is, that's what it is.
So, and your easement is 30 foot, guys. He does have a 30-foot easement right away.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we spell it out in there that it meets that minimum width required.
The other item I didn't see in here that was discussed on this was some type of offsite all sewer, and I think that's handled in the plat process, but seems like
Handle the plat process.
seems like it's something that could be included in here that
Well, we took
kind of nails down that that's what we gotta have.
Yeah, so in our discussion, we talked about sewer preliminary about how we can do it. That with 25 units though, you can't generate enough water from those 25 units to put in a system. So our plan is to
We're not
do.
talking about
No.
a pond system, we're just talking about what is outside system.
So
Scale to just 25 units.
packaging plants, what he's talking about.
Yeah, but a lot of those packaging plants, the one that we looked through, it was like 100,000 gallons a day to get that water through.
So through your preliminary plat process, we'll work on finding a solution for the sewer there's a couple different avenues we could do that we'll look at. We just need to make sure, as I've stated all along, that whatever infrastructure we put in, that all of these people around you have an opportunity to utilize it as well, because we're just not don't want to be in the business of developing individual utilities for one box of people. That's what we want to avoid.
Totally understand that concept. I think the thing that we're coming out is during all this discussion, we talked about doing it, but our plan is to do a septic system on these lots. With the size of the lots, that is our plan. So I just want that clear. That's the plan on that.
Okay, make it clear. We want to say yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be open with you and tell you what our plan is, because
Let me just remind you of some of the conversation we've had, is that we need to do something different because of flooding that can take place right there. You're talking about putting septic systems in harm's way of the flooding from Main Street that comes over. And I think that's why it's important that we clarify that. Because that's been a discussion that we had all along, but if something's gonna change, then that's.
I've seen
I've
seen some drawings of the preliminaries, and it doesn't indicate that at all. So there's no conflict with the drainage.
there's no conflict.
He's got a 5-gallon bucket outside every house. He's collected every 2 hours and goes up there. So the other item on this that we challenged with is in the same section, section 4C. I believe it's C. Developer shall transfer fee title by special warranty deed of 4 acres inside the project to the town for the future development of a regional detention basin as depicted on Exhibit A here too. The regional detention basin shall be designed and constructed by the town at the town's expense. The spirit, I'm gonna say the spirit, of what we were trying to do was to be able to utilize the builder's ground and as much money as we could get him to contribute to pay for a retention basin that would not only serve his project, but the water to the north of him, as well as the current homes to the south of him that are having flood issues. The state, and I'm not going to try to quote the state statute, I have read it, but I'm not going to so state it. It's very difficult to, and in fact, I think it's impossible to require a development project to pay for a city infrastructure issue such as this. I'm getting close.
I can speak to that.
I'm getting close to it.
So I would love to hear from the current attorney, and we have our attorney, Craig Carlisle, also online just for reference.
Good evening, Craig. How are you?
So the state code, what it says, and what you're speaking to, Mayor, are called exactions, where the city requires a developer to make certain improvements as a condition of developing property. And what the state code says is that those exactions have to be roughly proportionate or reasonably related to the improvements that the developer is requiring to put in. So that's a very loose standard. That's roughly proportionate. You know, it's not definite in any way, but that is the standard.
See, that's what I was really trying to say. And to bring that into perspective, this is a 25 lot subdivision, and our town engineer, Sunrise Engineering, has estimated the cost of this somewhere close to $1 million. I would say 800 to 1.1.
Somewhere
in that range for a 25 lot subdivision. That would, just initial 10,000 foot view would indicate to you that that's an extreme overburden that we're placing on him. We charge an impact fee across the town to pay for these items. And I'm just going to use an arbitrary number just for explanation. If the thing is $1 million and his 25 lots total in impact fees of $100,000, $900,000 is an excessive burden to put on the developer for a 25 lot subdivision with a $100,000 liability. And that's where the challenge is. So they have to augment that, will in their final plat come in with a plan that shows the excavation of a minor type retention basin that's more like in the 1 to 2 foot depth range. The challenge is a town has no way to accept the water out of that basin because the water goes directly into our private property landowners. Our solution is the current drain program that Mayor Lisenby had initiated back when he was the mayor with FEMA to develop a new drainage basin that basically goes around behind his house and down into the creek bed area. And I don't want to get into the details of that. I'm just saying that's a long range plan. So, but until we're in a position where we can actually accept the water, in return, we can't create a liability for him by making him build a detention basin that could flood our residents. That's my fear factor. Okay, and if we require him to do that to that capacity, as Sunrise has suggested, the finance of it is one challenge, but the liability of it is the second challenge, because we are putting that developer in a position where he could potentially harm our residents through that system of overflow, because we have no drainage pipe in place to take it. So it needs to be work together.
I want to clarify, we are still doing detention.
Correct, but on a minor scale.
But it's just not the regional, not the full gamut of that regional detention pond. We're still doing detention that detains our project and some, just not the full thing. To build the berms and go that route.
I think you're also doing some minor retention on your each of the lot, correct?
So these are big enough lots that we were able to spread out. We want to spread out that water, detain it in multiple locations to spread it out so it's not a single point, because currently there's not a single point.
Is your development higher than the citizens over here on the other side?
Higher than which citizens on Rome?
Where Marty lives and the rest of the cul-de-sac.
Are we higher? Yes. The ground naturally flows up. Right. And so the natural that's historically always gone across the water will still go across that water, but we will detain the requirement that's that is the increase from the new development. And dedicate the land, which is a big portion to get that land over to the city, that when the city gets their grants through FEMA can go and build that detention right away.
So you guys aren't building any detention at all?
No, we're building
donated the land.
We're donating the land, but we're building the detention required for our development.
Okay, gotcha.
and I think one last comment, so that when in visiting with engineers, the engineer posed the question to me, why are you requiring this to begin with? Because they're only really required to go to the north end of the property and put in a drainage pipe and continue the water through their property as it currently does, and it's still our problem. So
I get that.
they're giving up, in all fairness, probably a $300,000 to $400,000 contribution in today's market to help us solve our problem. So
Well, and he's unfortunately got the piece of land that has all the issues.
that's the nature of pioneering development, because the developer who, the guy who buys the ground, Mr. Wells, when he bought the ground, he understood that, and he's here to find a way to resolve that. And I think this is the essence of how we work. And I talked to Andy earlier tonight about how you have these conflicts between development growth and non-growth areas. These are the things that we have to be able to incorporate in our procedures to ensure that the health and safety of all of the towns is met, and not just individual projects. That includes sewer, water, streets, and drainage. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions for our attorney that's online?
No, Craig, thanks for showing up.
You're open to the public?
Well,
Public comment.
I have a question here. I'm a little unclear. So my understanding is that we're basically in agreement on the detention basin. We're basically in agreement on the fire road or the access road. I couldn't quite follow where you were on the asphalt. You started saying something to the effect you wanted to avoid, kind of ignore the existing ordinance, and then it came back, and I thought we were saying we were just going to have just asphalt at 20 feet. Can you clarify for me where we're at on that? Because I'm trying to figure out, are we in a position to sign this agreement or are we not?
Okay, so let me answer your first question first. Yes, you're right. You're correct that we are in agreement on the first three items. The roadway width of asphalt that we're talking about, I referred to our code that requires the new construction to be wider than the current road is. I'm not sure that the requirement to have the developer change or reconstruct that road is the appropriate avenue. Our council has suggested that we have a field day and go out and review the site and come up with a plausible solution to both the developer's challenge as well as our current residents' challenge. So I don't believe we're in a position to execute this agreement until we've had that study or had that field day completed. What I would suggest to council is that rather than push the applicant back another month, because I think he's been in his, 6th month now, the 5th month, that it is getting out there a little bit far. I would suggest that we give the mayor the ability to execute the agreement once we've accomplished these things without coming back to the council. It's a purely suggestion.
So let me make one observation. I think the idea of requiring an applicant to bring an existing road up to a current standard that's going to service more than this subdivision has the same analysis that we have on the detention basin about exactions. And so we have to look at what the impact from the developer, the Wells's development would have on that road. And that would be a limitation on how much they have to reconstruct from my perspective. Now you can all talk about it and we can all figure out what that is, but this is a new issue to me. And so I'm just kind of listening to your conversation and offering what my thoughts are. I haven't really analyzed that road issue.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? More questions?
I feel that we could move forward with it and still be able to go out. We can go out, put in a designated time that we can meet and go out there and look at it and come up with a solution. Even if we have an engineer and representative for Wells up there, and then we come to a term that could be.
Okay. Let me clarify, where are you at? how close are you to submit your final plat? You waiting on this to get executed?
So for as far as our final plat, we're not there yet, but our construction drawings, we're ready to submit as of today. I mean, we're ready to go talk about these issues and deal with them. And currently on the plan, we got 20 feet of asphalt because the discussion had changed. Okay. On the access road, it was 20 feet, so it changed. So we got to go update those, and we have those things to go deal with.
Okay, Mr. Hall?
But what the thing that I was hoping that we can do is approve it, that we go meet and discuss, and it's a discussion between 20 and 24 feet of asphalt is what I'm assuming.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest a hybrid. I just want to verify with Mr. Hall that we can do this. I would like to suggest to council that we package this development agreement with the construction drawings, the CDs, before the CDs are signed off, this is part of that package, so that we can have an opportunity to go have this field day with both engineers and come up with a solution that would be included in those CDs, and then I could execute it at that time. Is that? No.
You could make a motion to approve the development agreement subject to council's viewing and approving the access issue of the roadway. You could make that motion. You could include in there that it could be made part and approved together with the construction drawings if you wanted to do it that way.
The
I'd rather keep them
JUC,
separate.
that's fine. The JUC would approve the construction drawing. So I was trying to find them an avenue because they've been here so many times that keep them from coming back again, that we could handle a different level. But if you're suggesting that we separate the two, I'm perfectly fine with that too.
If the council approves that motion, then you could do approval of the development agreement subject to the council resolving those remaining issues.
The JUC.
Well, the council
would have to come back to the council is what I was trying to avoid.
We would like to move forward, I mean, with the development agreement and then work through standard, I mean, we got to work through your JUC process. And these are issues we got to work out, right? So we're committing to pave the road. Now, to, like you said, to change everything, we've never thought about that or even talked about that at all.
So to clarify that, then, if we execute and approve the development agreement that says 20 feet, but we don't allow him to go forward with the construction drawings, we do have the authority to change it at that point. We're not bound by the development. I don't want this guy to come back and sue us 6 months from now because you told us we could have 20 feet.
You're bound, if you approve the development agreement, you're bound by the development agreement.
Then I'm not in favor.
Yeah, my understanding was it was going to be to town standards, and I did not measure the road at that time, did not know it's only 20 feet. So it was all new information, and I just think we have to, talk with the engineer. I like Mike's idea of going up there and meeting and discussing.
Absolutely. We want to go meet with you guys. We definitely want to go meet on that width. We found out as well that the width currently was 20 feet. Now we're committed to making it 24.
We have to start.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to make our commitment what we've got to do to fix that road too on yours, because you've already committed to paving from where it's at. But I think we need to look at our impact of what's happening with the drainage and everything on that road, whether we've got to make some changes before you do your improvement on that part of it too, so.
This is one of those points that was brought up by the residents as far as safety. And I just want to make sure we're doing our homework on safety. And it's, the complete approval subject to all this. So I hate to approve this, and we have absolutely lost all leverage of even saying no on the project if we can't have safety.
Exactly. Okay. Dave, with that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we table item number 12, discussion of possible action on development agreement with Travis Wells until such time as we can do a field study and get a report back from our engineer. Do we have a second?
I still move, second. In that second, and we look at a date right now that we can make the time to go out there and get all the engineers.
The engineer.
Okay, all right, never mind that. Okay.
So,
Seconded, I'll vote. Yes.
Mike?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
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 David, 5-0. We'll make that as fast as we possibly can, guys. Item number 13, discussion of possible action on.
So Mayor, may I make a clarification? Did you guys make in your motion that the mayor can sign it after that meeting, or are you saying?
We did not.
No.
We did not. Discussion and possible action on zone change of partial AB-1365-H-4. from OST to RE5, address 2000 South 1600 East. This is Daniel Mercer's property.
So just a little clarity on this one. When it went to town council level, they were seeking 2.5, but it didn't match with the area. So planning commission recommended for RE5 instead. So that's what they're requesting now with RE5.
What's the location of this?
Our pages are something else.
They're the China shop. They're the China shop over past Cedar Point.
Oh, okay.
Is this still 8 acres or did he change the size of it?
They did a lot line adjustment to make it so both of them would fit within the 5 acres.
It's the law.
Lot line adjustment, so do we have 2 5 acres?
Oh, 891, guys.
Yeah, there's one that in it that he submitted. It doesn't appear that our applicant is here anyway.
Again.
Yep.
Okay. AB 13.5, let's see, OST to RE5 address.
I don't see the size.
It's not identified. That was my challenge too.
By acreage.
So it appears that he has a 5 acre, they did a lot adjustment, okay, which is this line here. This line here, Mike.
Yeah,
They
that's
did a lot of
size.
adjustment. So the hatched area is supposed to be 5 acres of ground that he was trying to split into 2.5 acre lots. But he didn't identify them, so.
Yeah, they're 8 acres.
So the inconsistency on the map, both the acreage and the lack of a lot line, I just would I myself would not like to take action on that until we see proper documents, fresh documents.
On the lot line adjustment.
Yeah, I don't see two separate acres in there, 2 separate lots in there, but he's not applying for a zone change only, but it says 8 acres instead of 2.5, or instead of 5 acres.
And it's really the state parcel.
It is. So there's no slot split there.
Well, one says 4, one says 5, so apparently that's already done.
I'm just saying there's enough inconsistency and lack of proper information that I don't feel comfortable taking the action on this until he gets it cleaned up.
What size is the property now? 8 acres. 8 acres. 8 acres.
It's supposed to be 5, but it says 8. So if you'll see here, and this is the planning commission's recommendation too, as well as I think most buyers, is to go to RE5, but it doesn't match.
Isn't OST like space, open space? Yeah.
Split is correct.
And they want to change it to 5 acre
Two
residential.
2.5 acre lots. The problem is that's 5 acres, yet that is 8. Nor is there a lot split in there anywhere to show where it is. It just seems to be incomplete to me.
I think that
What seems to be incomplete to me.
could end up happening is where we say yes to the RE5 on that, on 8 acres, and he would be able to then do a lot split. Part of it 3 acres, part of it
It's okay, we're back, we can
5
see.
acres. And we have a non-conforming lot that we created, because
Then I
So
mean,
is there actually 8 acres there or there's not?
we don't know.
That's a good question.
I think
Good
there's
question.
8 acres. The guy owns 2 properties there, one that's.
So if he wants to contribute that 3 acres to the town, we'll take it.
Is he not here tonight?
He's not here, that's the other
So
issue.
I move that we table that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Lisby to table item number
Second.
13, discussion possible action on zone change in parcel AB-1365-H-4 from OST to RE5. Is there a second that? Vote begin with Mike.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item table. Item number 14, discussion of possible action on zone change of parcel AV-1311-D from single family to RE10. Planning Commission recommendation approved with a 5-0 vote. This is Jordan Holmes. Lives up on the corner of Smithsonian Way and what's the main road going out?
Purple Sage.
No, it's not. So going from right here.
Oh, that,
Gooseberry.
I think that's further down though. I think he's actually,
He's on the corner of Smithsonian. The driveway goes in right there.
is that where the trailers are parked?
It is,
Yeah.
2 trailers.
How much property did you have there?
19 acres total, I think it is.
Does that go all the way to the other street?
No.
It's just part of that.
it sort of does. There was actually, I think, 30 acres.
Yeah.
Originally, they did a lot split.
Somebody else owns
And
it.
his brother owns the northern portion of Texas.
He only accesses off
Which
of,
is a whole nother.
So is that only 2 parcels?
yes.
But he wants to do something with his.
He wants to change from single family to RE10, which is one privilege, 10 acres.
Well, I just leave it all.
That's what he's trying to do, but also single family. I don't know that's hey, wait a minute. I don't know that's the case.
Oh, I understand.
But
So I read somewhere that he wants to kind of like have a farm.
he did.
Yeah, well, he was planned for a garden or whatever on SF, but you can't force it. He doesn't want to be able to have horses. He wants to have horses. Well, everybody else has horses. There's RE right across the street. He just has one the same.
So he's not doing anything out of the ordinary.
I move that we approve the zone change.
Wait a minute, before you do, do we have any discussion on this item? Mike?
Sounds good. I'm good.
Okay, now we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the zone change of parcel 1311-B from SF to RE10.
Second.
Vote again with Mike.
Aye.
Aye. Vote carries 5-0. Item number 15, discussion with possible action on zone change and general plan amendment of parcel AB-1377-B-1. That's a lot of title. From RE to Ag. Applicant is Roger Ashmore. Planning Commission approved this or recommended for approval of this with a vote of 5-0.
Roger's property is fronts the highway.
Yeah, I know we're.
And he's.
Place looks a lot better than it used to.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
see
a lot of
that.
improvements.
It doesn't really affect any neighbors that I can see.
No, I don't see it either.
It's primarily the back end of the property that you're changing to Ag, correct? Or is the whole
It's
thing?
the, what's all
Whole
base,
thing.
what,
Okay.
is 7 acres or something?
What, Roger, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing?
Can you come up front, Roger?
7, 6, 7, 8, 7 behind the fence.
He could ask for commercial property and have it if he wanted.
What's your?
I plan on to down the road. Eventually, I'm sure it'll end up being commercial, but
If you want to change this to Ag, what's your intent for it?
I'm farming.
Okay. Any questions?
Like animals, vegetables?
Yes,
Combination of
yes.
both? All? Is he within his
Wiener
requirements for
pigs?
what he can have there?
No, pigs.
Whatever ag.
Whatever ag
ag
zone,
is.
whatever the ag.
But there are limits on an ag property next to RE, there's limits on things like this.
Right, you can't have that if you're.
Oh,
I'll
I'll never have pigs.
Wiener pig.
Not even a wiener pig.
If he wants to sell eggs or something, he'd have to have an ag.
Yeah, in order for me to do like, being able to sell from the property, agriculture works better than an RE5. Eventually down the road, we'll end up having like a produce stand, but that's maybe even a couple of years down the road after I build my house. So our next, there's several steps that we're gonna be going through, and I'll be putting horse stables in. And just,
Is there any requirement out there?
Yeah, he's got ag restrictions, so he'll have to follow. those
Okay,
procedures. Yes, sir. This is
that's
just,
what I was asking.
this just opens them up to allow us to start going in for farms. And just taxes drop down.
Oh, yeah, that I.
Mr. Hall.
I just have a comment. Anytime you change the zone, regardless of what the applicant says when they're applying for the zone change, they can use the property for whatever the zone says they can. So, okay, you guys are.
I get that.
Okay, all right.
But I want to correct one thing, that's.
I just want to know what I can go buy.
That's right. Where's the shop?
Organic vegetables, organic produce. You buy your frozen.
One thing to correct is ag, it gives you lower taxes, that's a bunch of them. You pay the same taxes as anything else, it's green belt that lowers your taxes.
True.
But ag itself is not gonna save you 5 cents.
Okay, we have a motion.
Anyway, I move motion or I move that we, this is actually a few actions. I'll say that, I move that we do a general plan amendment of parcel A 1377 B-1 to ag.
We have a second. Vote against Mike. Aye. Okay, gentlemen, flash portion of that passes 5-0. Motion for the second.
And then I move, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
I move that we approve a zone change on parcel AB 1377 B-1 from RE to Ag 5. Ag-5.
Why Ag-5?
It's, well, we have to put in a zone, it has to be designated as a size of some kind. We have 5, 10.
Is it 5 acres?
20, it's a little over.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That would be the smallest, if you have less than, let's say you had 3 acres, you can't get ag, it's minimum.
Right, it's minimum.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Vote again with Mike. Aye. Zone carries 5-0 on the zone change of AB 1317. Item 16, discussion of possible action on the mayor working on the variance for ordinances 0-2020-12 cabin and tiny home park zones. We have 3 current projects in town for tiny cabins. One is Mr. Campbell, one is the RV park going into the Chevron, and the third is the Bang Brothers concrete company. And that's not their legal name, but that's who it is for their tiny cabin project out on South Main Street, down south of Highway 59. All 3 applicants have come in and discussed the nature of their natural landscape features and have shared concerns that a tiny cabin program, in their opinion, should support more of a natural landscape product. And when you're putting in 2 and 5 and 6 and 7 acres of asphalt, that for those tiny cabins, that you begin to lose that aesthetic value that they're trying to build out of their business. They've asked for a variance on the parking structures around the cabins.
Who's asked for it?
Each applicant, all 3 applicants.
All 3, okay.
Mr. Campbell, and I apologize, I can't remember the guy's name from RV, and Bang Brothers out. They've also stated that where Bang Brothers, for example, they're developing larger than just a tiny cabin area. The RV park is developing a high quantity number of RVs. They've also suggested they possibly asphalt the core road or the collector roads and leave the RV structure itself into cinder or gravel or desert landscaping around there and not take the asphalt all the way up into where the RV is. The Bang Brothers are similar in their comments. And of course, Mr. Campbell is only 9 units. He suggested that his asphalt just come into the property for tracking 100 feet, whatever it is, or 200 feet, 300 feet, and then convert it over. So what we're discussing is whether or not we can go take a look at the ordinance and come back with a recommendation report back to town council. That's the action.
Can you briefly tell me what it is right now?
Right now, it requires them to put asphalt. So the tiny cabin project that went in down on the highway by Mr. Stout was not required to do that. And the town took action after that tiny cabin program to require tiny cabins to put in asphalt even through their parking lot areas where they park. So I suggest that you guys give time, go out and look at what they've done down there and see if it's something that you want to entertain a variance on. If you want to or not.
not able to do a variance at all? It's, the code, we have to change the code if we feel like it's inappropriate to do it.
So
Let me-
let me restate first, okay? I wasn't, if you'll read if you'll restate it, I'm not asking you to do a variance, I'm asking you to give the ability to go work on creating an ordinance so we can change that should we elect to do so.
Yeah.
So you want to put some breathing room in.
I didn't want to do anything. I want to go evaluate and look at it and see what best serves the product and then come back with a report and council decide what it wants to do.
So
That's all we're asking.
a couple things I'd like to
That's
throw
all
out
we're asking.
is Robert Campbell's is under a developer agreement, same with Bang Brothers. So in a developer agreement, they can get those variants in the developer agreement without having to change any ordinance or stuff. The part of the reasoning behind it, and I'm okay to do this by the way, but I've got about 8 trips on my calendar planned for RV in the next 6 months. And every one of them have gravel. There isn't a single one of them that's on blacktop.
With the exception of state parks and national
In
parks.
finished, parks. It's so common. Even the new one in Washington has blacktop where the roads are. And then as soon as you pull off, it's on gravel.
Well, how did we end up with it have to be asphalt?
We looked at her place and it was great.
It was, my mom.
It is. I mean, she's,
Where you park is gravel too, isn't it?
No, it's all blacktop.
and where you have.
And what we wanted was, that's why we did it. We want something of higher quality. I think we probably looked at your part.
It was her part.
It is.
And that we were looking for something of higher quality. There's, one of the reasons for that was, I mean, I don't know what your experience has been, but during time as mayor, I mean, you get, 5 calls a month at least. Someone want to put an RV park in. And if you didn't have a bunch of rules, we would have already had about 30 of them in town, and they probably look like little shanties, without some guidelines. So
Yeah.
I think that having blacktop roads is a minimum. Transferring to,
Well, in and out of the
grass,
facility, right.
that's maybe another, but, you don't want to have these people traipse up and down in mud. The thing with the roadways and even where you park, weeds start coming up, and then the things, 10 years from now, it's a kind of an eyesore. And that's kind of why we did it that way. I'm okay if the planning commission wants to relook at it because you feel like that maybe we're too tough on it, but it's gotta go through planning and.
I have no dog in this hunt. I'm asked by the applicants to go to the planning commission and visit it. I didn't feel comfortable doing that without the support of the council or direction of the council. So I put it on the agenda to make sure you guys are aware of what the applicants were asking for and that you allow.
Everybody wants the same thing too.
Well, I simply want to go get with Alan and staff and take a look at, is it?
Or would be too hard to get along.
Sorry.
Or we get too hard to get along with.
Well, we want the high quality, absolutely. We want the high quality, but we also don't want to overreach at the same time. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure I know where it is, but we wanted to consult I wanted to be able to go to the planning commission and consult them and come up with a solution and see if it is or it isn't.
Can
I'll make a quick comment as a neighbor to one of those units.
Yeah.
I'd sure rather, I don't care whether it's gravel or asphalt, but I would sure like it better than that big fire hazard that they have over there.
Okay.
I'd like to throw out something as a alternative to going back to the planning commission starting over. We already have an approved RV resort ordinance that's gone through the public hearing process and everything. And it's on our lap. We had it in one of our meetings. We postponed looking at it because of a few issues that I didn't like the description of, let me give you an example. If what we're trying to do is concentrate RV parks or something maybe on Main Street, something like that. We want to keep it away from Cedar Point and other residential areas. So they came up with this, how many feet away from this and that. And the problem with Main Street is if you have some residential on Coyote, and you put in there that it's got to be at least 1,250 feet away from residential zones, those come back to back in touch. You know, there's no way, we're now Xing out all of Main Street too, by the way it was worded. So because of that, we threw it out. But you can
So it
take,
just needs to be corrected.
you can correct that, and right there, you can put in that it's okay to do this and that on the roads and it can actually be really quick and easy. And the reason I like that particular ordinance was that one's cabins, camping, tiny homes, RV resorts, ability to put a restaurant in there, a curio shop, you know, any of that kind of stuff in that ordinance, where currently our RV parks is just RVs, and the tiny cabin homes is a separate one. And we can just replace it with that one ordinance and we clean that up. And we can have that on our next town meeting.
Well, the discussion and the action is to initiate that conversation with the planning commission to revisit these zones or these ordinances and see if there's a better way or if it's a good way currently. Just come back with a report. And that's I'm asking for Yeah, I'm asking for a motion because even though in my role I could go do it, I've stated all along that I don't think these things should be done by one individual. I think it should be a group effort. So I'm asking you to tell me it's okay.
Well, I move that we approve the action of we are working on a variance. Excuse me, I'm gonna pull that out already. Working on the cabin tiny home park zone ordinance.
0220.
And
We have a second.
02020.
yeah, 0-2020-12 is the last one.
Second.
Voting on the mic.
Aye.
Aye. Vote carries 5-0. Reports, recommendations, and announcements. Saw the junior here. Is he out in the bay?
Yeah, to run.
Okay.
Pick up his kids.
Anybody from the water department here? They all left, looks like. Richard's not here tonight. Any other report, recommendations, and announcements? Okay, move on to item 17, review of fraud risk assessment. Item number 17. You didn't what?
I said I didn't even
Get that far.
I didn't get that far.
Taylor, would you like to take a crack at this?
I'm sorry, I really don't have
Okay.
that detail. This was
Okay.
something John did for us before he left.
Well, this is what the state auditor required us to do, actually.
Yeah.
We had this on their agenda once before, and Sean asked us to take it off for some reason. So I think Mr. Hall should have a chance to review this.
Okay.
I would like to review it too.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table item number 17, review of the fraud risk assessment, to give council an opportunity to look into it deeper and ask Mr. Hall, now that he's on board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote again on the mic.
Aye.
Aye. Postpone then. Okay, we'll open up the floor now to public comment section. You guys all got first, he beat you. Come on up, Richard.
I'll pour it here.
Oh, we need you to come up in front of the camera so the audience can see you. Let's see your lovely face.
Rich Kopp, 2222 East Ranch Road.
Sorry, sorry, so the camera can see you.
Rich Kopp, 2222 East Ranch Road. Yeah, I'm part of the naysayer group. Apparently, when you don't agree with decisions that the council makes, you're a naysayer, when you might have a different opinion on how the town should go forward. Okay, I had a couple comments from Mr. Lisenby before about he's a big proponent of property rights, but yet you guys hold people ransom to dedicate their property, part of their property, to the town so they can get their permit. Now, do you think that is right? Okay, another thing that that was bothering me when you made a comment was you said that I was the one that only had a problem with Tish dabbling with the computer and the books.
I never said your name.
You please, okay? The motion was to make Tish have temporary access until a bookkeeper was hired.
That's not what it says.
It was,
Let me answer. What it says is temporary until a full-time accountant was hired.
a bookkeeper.
It says full-time accountant.
Would you like to put some money on it? It was a
No, continue on.
bookkeeper. There were 4 bookkeepers since that motion was made, okay? Couple other comments, did the town give remote access to computers during COVID? Did the town give remote access to computers during COVID?
I don't know. I wasn't here when we put it privy to that.
Did the town give remote access to it during COVID?
We're supposed to have remote access set up, and the network guy has never set up for remote access.
So how do we do business over here if they didn't have remote access?
We show up and I don't understand. what
There were many days where the town was closed because of COVID, yet you did not give the same opportunity to the special district. So how are they supposed to take care of their finances, whatnot, during that time? Another thing, how long has the special district been been in control of their books?
I think the answer to that, if you go back and read the resolution, it was approximately
January 2019.
2019.
But actually, it was the whole time, ever since the creation of the district, it's what it was up until October when they separated away. So only that 3-month period when they went up on.
So 3 months they had access to, they were control of their books. And you're telling me in that 3 months is when the proverbial shit hit the fan? Please. The town was responsible for all the bull crap that went on with and you guys, I know you guys see it, yet you keep just rubber stamping. That's why the public is so divided. And don't think it's just me. You sit there with a smirk on your face. You were the worst thing for the council.
You don't understand the problem.
I know, I don't understand. You are so much smarter than everybody else. That's part of your problem. You look down on people. You are the smartest person in any room. That is an issue with you, and yet you guys put him back on the council. And that's why we're so divided in this town. You can honestly tell me that putting him back on the council was a step towards bringing unity into the town?
The only unity I see is in this room every meeting.
Oh, yes, it's only 12 people. Yeah, right. Okay, Paul, open your eyes. You don't have your finger on the pulse of the town. I'm done. Thank you.
Walter, end up next, sorry.
So my question involves Mr. Hall. That's right. So the engineer stood here and said that he's not going to be able to widen that road sufficiently. You heard him say that, didn't you?
No, I didn't hear you say that.
I heard him say that. Taylor, do you remember him saying that? There would be places in that road that would not be able to widen.
Taylor's not on the council, so you please go
Well,
ahead.
I'm just saying because she was typing. So if he cannot widen the road sufficiently to create safe access, are you going to deny him access of that road?
He did say he would do to the park 24 feet if he had to. From what I was understanding what he'd said, to where we've agreed for him to start that pavement from where we've ended the pavement, that he would do the 24 feet going up.
If it requires it.
Okay, I want clarification on that.
Okay, that's what I heard and
because
understood when we were talking about.
All right, I thought I heard him say that there will be sections of that road that he will not be able to widen
Talking about
sufficiently.
parts that are already there, that are already paved.
She is correct. He wasn't the width of the road. What he was saying was that the angle of the road, the turning of the road, there are areas that would not support a 24-foot road. And we know that for a fact. Our engineers told us the same thing. you could get 24 foot of asphalt, but you couldn't get drainage in there. That's part of it. There's not enough capacity in that roadway, easement right of way to have both of those. We have a conflict because our ordinances state the width of the bar ditch, the width of the road, both sides. In a place like that where you have to have drainage on both sides, there's not enough spacage in there to make that happen. So we're going to leave that up to the engineers to determine what's the safest way to make that road work.
Okay, so then my question that I would like you to pose to Mr. Hall is, if we cannot widen that road to meet code and provide safe access, not just for the residents that are there, the people that buy into that development are coming in on the preponderance that they're going to have safe access. They have a right to safe access. And so if they don't have safe access and you permit the project to go forward, does that create a legal liability for the town?
So the question is whether the fire department is going to approve access. Like, you can't issue building permits if you don't have
Proper fire access.
Emergency access. In this specific situation, and again, I came into this cold. I don't know anything about this project. Tonight's the first I heard about it. I'd want to go review. I had lots of questions that I didn't want to take up your time asking tonight. I'll need to do that on my own time, but that's something that will need to be addressed and look at. I can't answer that question until I know what's been approved already and get these details on the development, because it's a good question. And it's the answer.
It could create legal liability if you approve something that doesn't provide safe access to those people who buy into that development. We who already bought on that road, we know what we bought. We bought that road, we know, but they have an expectation of a safe access. So if you approve it and it's not, there's legal liability.
Sure.
So then you have to go back to looking at your transportation roads. There's another road that is already in the transportation approved. You're going to have to go back to that and look at that again.
We're currently modifying that too. So we're trying to get that updated so they can include that.
All right, so I want this to be transparent because again, it's not just the residents there that bought what they bought, knowing what they were buying. It's the people buying into that development that deserve your consideration, not just your consideration, but making the hard choice and making the hard decision because it's the right thing to do.
I agree with you. And I do want to clarify one thing though. I do disagree. It's not just the people buying it. If we've got an insufficient road now, it should be the priority of the town to fix it just for the existing residents. I disagree with your statement.
Well, thank you so much for considering us as well.
Well,
But I'm just
I'd rather
saying, we
too.
knew what we bought. We knew
Yeah.
what we bought. I
Yeah,
know when I slide down that hill,
yeah, but
I bought that house.
but still, that doesn't make it the right thing to do. And so I looked at this last fall before the Wells project ever came to it. That's as a resident here 10 years ago, we had discussions about that roadway. So this isn't a new problem. This is a long-term problem.
And I want to be on the record again, I'm not opposed to the project. This is not coming up from a place of protecting any views. It's coming from a place of safety.
For everyone, including this.
All right,
Thank you, sir. You had your hands up next?
I have a question.
Please come up front.
Okay, I'm applying for a building permit. I might be in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
Probably.
But when will I, it's been Paul Cleverly, live over here on Rome Avenue. And what it is, they told me to call you, but your voicemail's full, probably because you're busy. But I wanted to just see what's the turnaround time on the building permit? How much is the cost? And there's a list on your website of things I need, like environmental impact and drainage and all this. It's an existing home up there that I'm adding on to.
And this is gonna sound really bland, but the turnaround period actually comes down to how much effort you put into the application.
Okay, yeah, and I have questions about that application, and I talked with the Chipman boy, and he helped me quite a bit, but he needs someone that knows a little bit more about it.
If you would like to leave me your phone number, I'll call you tomorrow and help you walk through it so we can get this as quick as possible.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
I will tell you this, when you mainstream a permit, it would be my personal desire, I'm not speaking for town, it's my personal desire that turnaround time be 48 hours.
Okay,
for
yeah,
a builder. That's,
okay,
that was the intent when we started, when other communities started streamlining the building permit process. There were towns that actually achieved a 48-hour process. But it always comes back to the applicant and whether or not they provided enough information for
Yeah.
the process that quickly.
yeah, some of the things on there on that process, let me ask you while I got you here, just real quick, I won't take too much time. Do I need the engineering to add 1,400 square feet on
You
there?
know, structural engineering,
Do I need to hire an engineer?
unless you're one yourself,
Okay, all right. Do I need the site plan?
you do,
Where do I get that at?
from your engineer.
Okay, he can do that.
He'll take your legal description of your plat,
Okay,
preferably with the original
okay, perfect.
home construction drawings, if you have those by chance.
Okay,
And he'll create a site plan from that.
I do have those. Then the res check. What's that? Will the engineer do that?
He will.
Oh, fantastic.
You're honestly, your best bet for
Yeah.
time
Yeah,
and for simple process
yeah,
is to hire one who has the ability to do it, an engineer,
yeah,
someone who's qualified.
yeah,
Let them take a couple days and get your plan put
Okay.
together and get it submitted for you.
yeah.
And that's your fastest, simplest procedure.
Okay, and he knows about the geotech data and the code compliance certificate.
If he's a good engineer, yes.
Okay, and will I need a new septic permit?
Not if you have an existing permit that the health department.
Adding that much square footage, if you're at the bathroom, you'll need to update your septic.
Okay,
It
and
could be that what you have is fine, but.
who does that? Is that the county? The septic
The
permit?
health department, yes.
Health department, okay.
To finish my statement before Marty cut me off was, is yes, if you will need to update your septic system, if you're adding a bathroom, if you're adding additional plumbing,
Okay,
you'll need to address that with them. They'll basically take a look at your project and see if your current septic system can absorb that much capacity. That's what it'll come down to.
okay, then the plot plan to show drainage, will the engineer be part of that?
Yep.
Oh, so I need an engineer.
The engineer is 100% of the package.
Yeah, okay.
Everything.
Yeah. No
If you
worries.
want to get through quickly.
You know, I want to get through quickly.
Okay.
What
I can
kind
do
of
all of
cost are we looking at on the, oops, I'm sorry.
I have.
Cost on the permit, are we talking $700,
Based on-
$7,000?
Well, I'll take 200 grand if you'll give it to us, but.
I wish I
it's-
had it.
It's calculated on the square footage, so you'll have to call the office and Taylor, when she gets back
Can you
on
help me,
vacation.
Taylor? I'll ask you tomorrow.
When she gets back on vacation on Monday,
Okay, no worries. I'm not that big. of a-
she'll help you calculate that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Tom, you have a question? Sorry, he was next, sorry. Trying to go in order.
Tom Hunt,
You weren't lipping yesterday.
I wasn't living a year ago. Anyways, Tom Hunt, 1291 Apple Blossom Lane. I'm a little disappointed in you guys in taking over the special service district. Absolute power, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We look at Washington, we hate it when we got one party running it. I think it's better to have water district in the town. Now, if you guys have problems with communications and whether it's the town have a liaison through the water district or vice versa, so you guys aren't mingling each other, you shouldn't have to be calling.
It does. It has the mayor and the council members served on the board.
Okay, so,
But
they
Tom,
need to be talking,
but what I said earlier was is that when I started this process, was asked to start this process back before the holidays, the personal this and that was not a reason for me to dissolve the district. Anybody that sat in any meeting with me, including Mr. Sarah, whether he'll admit it or not,
That's
wait a
not
minute,
what I'm
wait a
talking
minute.
about. That's
I'm
not
gonna
what I'm
answer your
talking about,
question.
Dale.
I'm gonna answer
I'm
your
not
question,
even talking
Tom.
about that.
I am, okay? So
So-
the statement was made, Tom, that if those were not reasons to dissolve the district, but $1 million or $800,000 worth of savings in our town is a reason to go do it.
And it's not gonna save the town. I hate to tell you this, but it's not gonna save the town. If you listen to what that banker was telling you fellas, Mr. Banker said, all those nice loans and grants, we have to refinance, correct? Is that what he did?
We
Did
have
not
to
I hear that?
absorb.
Absorb.
They just transfer them over and
They-
refinancing.
And through that process, we
Some of
cut our interest rates almost half.
Do you cut them all or
Partial, one of them 0%, one 1%. But
so
the
is
big
that
one,
roll over or not? I think
Yeah,
that's, we need
those
some clarification
yeah,
there.
those are-
because
we're
you're
not
gonna
altering them.
save.
we would not be altering them, Tom. We'd only be altering the big loan That's 3.5 to 4% range, just under 4% interest rate. It's a $2.8 million loan.
But the other problem I see with that, and some of you know and some of you don't, is they have to go pay as you go. The town pays a tax. So if they want more, they just tax more.
Well,
For the
that's,
special service district, they have to get the grants, they have to actually do the work, they have to actually have the income,
You have the.
right?
Have you looked at the agenda for the next water board meeting?
I have not.
Take a look at it.
500.
They have the power to tax themselves. They got a 400 to
They
500%.
do, but I think there's just a little bit too much.
Look at the paperwork. They've got 400 to 500% increase in their rates planned at the next meeting.
So, and that's not gonna change, is it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, it will change.
Yeah, it'll go to like
Absolutely.
500,000. You know, I don't think this is gonna save us. I think you're gonna,
No.
I think it's gonna bite us in the tail feather.
Tom,
We've been told this before, and we can't die, you know. I mean, I agree, we need to update the water system, but, you know, we double, triple, quadrupled the rates, and I'm afraid you got it. It's just gonna be
we're
the
trying to
same.
stop the 400% increase, Tom.
I don't think it's gonna.
What part is not gonna happen?
You get it, yeah, you got control of the water, you got control of the taxes.
We have control of it already, Tom.
Yeah,
The water district.
I think it's too much into one head, and that's just my comment.
Okay.
I really think we should keep the town and the water separate.
There's a lot of truth to that. You next, sir?
My name is John Silverman. I'm at 22860 East Canyon Way. And I've had this conversation with a lot of different people, and I don't have the right answer. We came here tonight, my neighbor and I came here tonight, hoping to find the answer in all the discussion. It's really hard to listen to people talk at one time, hear what else going on. And I don't think to understand all what you're trying to do here, but I have one very valid question. I think it's a valid question. You have a valid answer. Question is, we got all this development going on, subdivisions developing. Where in the hell's the water coming from? We're told our water is running out. We're told that we're in a massive drought, and yet we keep building. Bigger demand, constant demand on our water source, water supply. Is this something I really need to worry about?
I think it is. But I also think there's some misconception in the presentation of where we are. We have an equally greater problem than water is, which is infrastructure. The development of Canyon Springs, and I wish Dale was still here because in the last water board meeting, he reported that our springs are now producing 62 million gallons a year annual water. But our demand in Canyon, they call it Canyon City, where you guys live, I think, or something of that nature, but Canyon Way, the demand there is something like 13 million gallons, and Cedar Point is like 18 or 19 million gallons.
5 million.
And 5 minutes to Canyon.
Yeah.
At 5 minutes in Canyon, which is a much more reasonable number, and only about 18 or 19 up in Cedar Point. So collectively, those two systems are using less than 25 million gallons a year, but yet we have capacity flowing today with more water available of 62 million gallons currently. Here's my answer to you. We have the water, we just don't have the ability to get it to you because we don't have any infrastructure in place. My challenge is that we spend $1 million, and I'm going to speak my personal view, sir, so if I'm rude, I apologize, but my personal challenge is that we went and spent $1 million or close to it to develop those springs to get that 62 million gallons of water, and you drive up there today and it's running out on the damn ground. I have a fundamental problem with that. I think that the structure and the management of the water district should have been such that when the money was allocated for the development of that springs, it should have went immediately into that pipeline and gone over to the Cedar Point being out of water tank storage instead of running down the ground where it is currently today. When you have that type of activity, I have a fundamental challenge personally with that. And that's why I'm an advocate of taking over and replacing the board with the town council, because I believe the citizens are throwing money down the drain, literally.
Okay, well, aside from that, the core question, do we have the water to support the subdivisions that you want to build?
Some of them yes, and some of them no. If you take a look at our structure, we are supposed to have developers bring their water, not water shares, but true liquid water, demonstrate they have real water capacity to be able to support their own subdivision so that there is not an impact on our current sources. However, that's a second fundamental challenge I have. Mr. Holmes has a project right here behind our subdivision up against the highway by which he received a will serve letter from the water district, unbeknownst to this town, where he was not required to bring in 1 acre foot of water when he owns and controls the largest producing well in this town, right here in the middle of these fields. So when the district produces and grants a will serve letter to a developer without that requirement, which is our town standard, you once again throw money down the drain at the expense of the residents. Those are the fundamental challenges that I have with the board continue to operate the water district. And those are the only reasons and real reasons why I am in support of replacing the board to stop some of that activity, as well as 400% increase in water rates. So yes, we have the water, we don't have the infrastructure.
And when you say the developer has to prove that he's got water for to start his project, how far out in the future does he require to prove that he's got the water?
He's not, because we're not, you and I both know you can't predict the future. We know that we're in a second dry state in the country. We know that water management should have a threshold of distribution to a community and with a percentage of that water in reserves. This particular landowner controls I'm close to 1,800 acre feet of water shares, as is reported to me by the previous landowner. I know that well produces about 1,300 gallons a minute. That's enough to sustain roughly 3,000 homes, and we got 0 from him. So when you talk about projecting the future, we know that our field is depleting. We know that our water shares are overextended in the community, meaning there's more water shares allocated than there is actual water in the ground. So when you take the totality of the water that's left, we should be reducing that down and only allocating this much of that water to projects. If you own your own water share, if you own your own ground, this town is not in a legal position to stop an individual from using his water share. I know that every time he turns on that well, Mr. Harris has reported to me that when he turns on that well and starts watering those fields, that Rockville down there loses their water system. They begin to lose water capacity down there. Water management is an extremely difficult issue. There should be 2 primary things you should be doing, in my opinion. You should be verifying and allocating only a percentage of your real, true, usable water, and then you should be working on a way to replace the water that you take out of the ground. The sewer program that we want to work on in the future will generate and collect sewer and treat that and put it back into our ground to replenish those fields. Those are types of water management programs that we have not done in the past that are extremely crucial for us to implement.
The town wells dropped too. One other issue.
I want to see if you have any more questions. Sorry, I might not have answered your question.
You did. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
And Ken and I, Ken and I will be back. We want to figure out what you guys are doing.
Okay.
How the town's being run.
Okay,
We don't
fantastic.
understand that. But we'll be back.
Okay, thank you. You had a question before you walk away?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say that the town wells dropped also.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I
I've heard that too.
I was just gonna add to that, so 1 million gallons a day is what I've heard when those pivots go on. And so having homes there is a significant savings in water compared to having the pivots there.
Thank you, Mr. Lisenby, because you actually just said what I was about to say. For you to say that that was mismanagement, for him to work out a deal to put a development there, it's going to be a huge benefit to the town to not have those pivots go on. We're going to save so much water to not have those pivots go on. So to count pennies against our water future, that's not fair.
That's not what I said. What I said was that he is required to bring in his water shares and donate them to the water district as a part of his approval process, and that process was vacated.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that, because I thought that he was bringing water shares.
He's not. That's my argument. He was issued a will serve letter for his subdivision unbeknownst to the town council. We didn't even know it till the night he walked in here and was dropped in our laps by Mr. Holmes. My first question is, where's your water contribution from your development in order to get this will serve letter? And it was not initiated. So he received that will serve letter from the district without the contribution of those water sources that he holds.
So he's not going to contribute any of his water.
Zero.
All right.
For this phase.
No, he got a will serve letter for his subdivision in its totality of 240, 230 or 40 lots issued to him with no contribution. I have a fundamental problem with that. That is not what our system is supposed to be. Water is one of the most precious commodities beyond our children we have in this town. And we have this structure that is developed from us, not just bring in water shares, but verifiable liquid water shares. And then when that is circumvented by the district and puts the town in a position where it must now deliver that water to it at our cost or the residents' cost, I have a fundamental problem with that.
Has Mr. Holmes expressed that he's going to move those pivots to other parts of his land and continue running them?
No, he hasn't indicated anything whatsoever other than I'm not giving them to the city or I'm not giving them to the district.
Okay, so he's not said anything about running those pivots anymore.
He is running them this year. I know that.
I mean, once the subdivision goes.
I don't know that. He has shared no,
right.
but all the only thing is that the only thing we know for sure is that he was not required to donate his share of water that he should have contributed to the district.
Okay, thank you. I do want to address one other point because I was in the town, the water board meeting just recently, and you actually said to them that they need to come up with a way to reduce usage by 10% at Canaan Springs, at Cedar Point.
Based on the numbers that Dale had shared with me that day, yeah.
Yes, so you had requested, well, you had said you need to reduce it 10%. And then the discussion was, how do we reduce it? Do we fine people who use too much? Because there are people out there that are using 500,000 gallons, and then there are people that are using their fair share. So do we fine them, or do we charge them, raise the water rates to have them reduce their usage through their pocketbook? And you had said that you do not think that we can mandate what people do on their property. And so to fine people is not the way to go. So the whole discussion, which you were a part of, is that by raising the water rates, we're not taking away their rights by fining them, saying, well, you can't do what you want with your property, or we're going to fine you. But to say, if you're going to do this with your property, then you're going to pay this. And then that would collectively bring down the water usage at Cedar Point. You were a part of that discussion. And so to say that they're taxing the residents by raising rates, it was a discussion out of necessity. It's raising rates out of necessity, not because they're trying to impose a tax to raise more money for the water board to pay for this or that. It is to mitigate a serious water issue at Cedar Point. So please do not propagate that they are raising 400 to 500%, and like it's to benefit them. It's to protect the citizens, to protect the residents at Cedar Point.
How many gallons do you use?
I use 3,000 gallons a month. I watch my water. I put my bucket in my sink and I wash my dishes in my sink, and then I take that water out and go water my garden.
I did some research, and there's several cities I would say an average user is around 30,000.
That's not me.
You know,
Thank you, Mr.
But
Lisby.
my point though is that even at the 30,000 gallon level, it significantly impacts someone who uses 30,000 gallons. Significantly impacts. And so if you call that a normal, you're talking about having probably a $300 water bill if you have only 30,000 gallons used.
And it's a hearing to discuss it. It's what you do. You discuss it. But to say that it's normal, we're not in a normal situation. Cedar Point, if you know what's going on in Cedar Point, you know that they could run out of water by the end of this summer. They could be trucking in water by the end of this summer. So we're not in a normal situation, and they're going to have to take extraordinary steps to reduce water usage. And you advocated not to fine. You advocated raising rates. So support them in this effort because they're doing it to protect the residents.
I have a different solution. That's why I didn't support it.
But you didn't say that.
Because it's not my board and it wasn't my space.
You are on the board, Mr. Beto.
Yeah, there you go.
This is
You
not
just
my-
said 10 minutes ago, the mayor and a councilman are on the board. You're
To
on the
represent the
board.
town, correct.
You're on the board. So present your ideas so that something can collectively be done that's in the best interests of
I
the
voiced my
residents.
opinion. I said that I don't think that raising the rates or penalizing the town.
No, you didn't. You said you don't
Yes, you
think
did.
fining. You said you
Just
don't
let me
think
speak for
fining.
myself, okay? I don't believe that raising the rates or penalizing or fining the residents for what I deem as mismanagement of the funds, because there's $200,000 sitting there now that would pay for 90% of that pipeline that should have gone in 3 months ago. And that's my fundamental challenge.
You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of people going back to the past. We are in a situation where we need a solution right now. We don't need to go back to the past. That's why we've got what we've got, because we keep going back to the past and talking about, well, they did this and they did this. We have a situation right now that needs a solution. You should have spoken up if you had a solution.
I don't have the authority to make a decision where the money is appropriated. My challenge is as a town, as the mayor and a member of this board, is determine how to handle those situations where they are today. And today, my explanation of why we took the action to dissolve the board only and not the district was because of these challenges. I represented or spoke out about those challenges because they were brought to question by people like Tom. Why are you doing these things? Why are you concerned about this going on? I'm not concerned about this going on. Mr. Merritt and anybody that has a challenge with Mr. Merritt, he's quite capable of defending himself. I'm here to talk about the logistical problems of the water system and what is causing us to be in this position today. I speak about those things because there are comments from Mr. Kopp from somebody that suggested we're taking out a $10 million loan to fix these problems.
I didn't say 10 million. I said there's been rumor about 3, 8, 10, whatever, and you totally denied it. When it's been in the works, it's just been proved. You think you can bullshit everybody, but you can't. People see right through you. It's amazing you haven't been locked up a long time ago, so you're smart when you do it. But people see through it. I'm telling you.
Mr. Kopp, Mrs. Walters is speaking.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Walters, I shouldn't have done that on you.
Thank you. Mr. Beto, I was not speaking about the overall issue. I was only addressing the comment that they're raising at 400 to 500% in making it sound like this is to pad the finances of the SSD. It's only about addressing this one situation.
That's what you did, though.
I know you did it by saying it the way you did.
They're talking about an increase of 400 or 500%. And I know the reason is to deter the usage, but you're starting at 5,000 gallons. That's
And
where
that's-
the deterrent
And
starts.
a meeting is to have a discussion. That's what you do.
And
if Mr. Beto had a better solution, he should have shared it at the last water board meeting, instead of coming back later and saying, I have the solution and they did this. That is not how we want to operate our town. I'm sorry.
I didn't say I had a solution, Mr. Walters. I said I have a challenge. I have a challenge in the way it was done. There could be other solutions for this. And that's one of many solutions to be done.
Mr. Beto, when I just said that you said you didn't want to fine, but you supported raising rates as a means to cut 10%. Then you sat here just now and you said, I had a solution better than that, but I didn't say it because it's not my board.
It's not my position to make that statement.
To make a suggestion?
If you interrupt one more time, I'm going to end this meeting, okay? Please don't do this to the rest of the residents that are trying to hold down a meeting. If you want to come up to the podium when she's done, you're welcome to do so, but please wait till then.
What I'm just saying is, if any of you have a solution, don't sit on it and then come out later and say, well, I had a solution and they did this. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. And don't present it like they're raising it 400 to 500% for no reason. This is not a normal situation. I don't have to keep going on. You know what I just said. It's not a normal situation. We've got to address this problem in Cedar Point, and raising the rates is one way without fining the people for using their property the way they want to. How we raise those rates to accomplish that is up for discussion. We can get to the right number. It's just about getting to the right number to reduce usage. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Kopp, would you like to come forward, please? I will remind you to please keep your tone down.
Yeah, I have a few comments. Do you think refurbishing the Jessup and well 59 was of main importance?
I don't know anything about what you're asking me.
You said that the number one issue the SSD should have been working on was the Canaan Spring. Harold said that it's only weeks away before they get the funding. They've been working on have they been working on Canaan and Jessup Well to keep Cedar Point with water? You said it should have been the number one priority for the special district to be working on that infrastructure for the Canaan Spring. Yet, had they not been concerned with well 59 or the Jessup well, Cedar Point would be out of water. They'd be dry right now. Okay? Going back to, what do you have to say about that, Mr. Lisenby? Yeah, I know, because you know I'm exactly right.
This is public comment.
Right, yeah, I know. Of course you don't want to comment because what you would say would be wrong. And back to what you were saying before. Oh, yes, we try to make ordinances. This way we have surveys and we grab the public's input. We want to have these, see what the masses want. So then you pass an ordinance. Where is the enforcement? Zip, zilch, zero. Thank you for your time again.
Anybody else? Mrs. Sarah?
Hi, Nikki Sarah, 893 Foothill Drive. Okay, so the Zions Bank representative mentioned that you would need to have a public hearing notice first before going forward on all this. Can you explain that?
If we decided to go to the next step, and we'll take the next roughly 30 to 45 days to meet with the USDA and the DDW further than what we already met with them to determine what the requirements would be for us to absorb those debts and our qualifications to absorb those debts to be part of that process. After that, there is a series of public hearings that take place.
Okay, so within the town, the public, okay, find out information. All right, and then you had said that, now, can you clarify for me, did you dissolve the special service district or just the board?
Just the board.
Just the board, okay.
We
So
did-
with those,
Let me correct. We didn't dissolve the board, we replaced the board with town council.
okay,
So the town council now manages.
Let me put a finer point on that. You rescinded the delegation of your authority to the administrative board.
Okay.
That's what you did.
okay.
I couldn't understand that verbiage.
Okay, so on that, you said that you weren't going to have a committee. You said, well, the board was gonna be the committee, and then you said, well, we're not gonna have a committee.
That's not what I said. What I said was we invited the board to serve as in committee capacity, and they rejected, didn't want to do it. The existing board,
Okay.
we invited them to participate through this process and to serve in an advisory committee role, because I didn't want to see that board completely vanished, for lack of a better word. I wanted to continue working together with them and not just treat it like that. And they just simply didn't want to do that.
Okay, so who would be in charge at that point? Like all 5 of you, or will
The
you
town council
appoint
was in charge.
someone? Okay.
All of you?
Yeah.
Is there any clarification you would like to that? Is this, there?
What the statute says is by default, the legislative body has all of the authority to control a special service district unless unless the legislative body delegates that authority to an administrative board, which was done previously. What happened tonight was that delegation was rescinded. So now by default, the town council has all the authority to act in the capacity that the special service district has.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, anybody online? Okay, close the public comment section. The request for a closed session meeting.
Yes. There
Okay,
is a request for a closed session.
there's been a request made for a closed session meeting.
Second it.
to this, let me finish to discuss personnel issues.
Yeah, personnel.
Personnel conflicts. Do we have a second? And let me correct, Mike, you were making the first?
Yes.
Make a motion, second on that?
Second.
Vote again with Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Aye,
What's your name? Aye.
okay. Can you attend with us, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I need the answer.
Yes.
We can adjourn this meeting too.
I don't think we can adjourn at this point yet.
No, let's go into closed session, which we have. We'll excuse the public, and then we'll go out of closed session, and then we'll adjourn the meeting.
So you're welcome to stay around, you're welcome to leave.
This is Rome Avenue right here. Here's the parcel we're looking at. This is the town
Do you have a
plan
pocket
road
recorder?
for that parcel.
Yeah, it's right here.
Can you bring it back?
Yeah, I'll just come start it. I can see.
Main is right here. About 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's a back office. Talking about like the recording and then I'll let you know.
This plan road for this parcel. They're
Yeah.
supposed to do that. If they buy a parcel,
Just a minute.
that they are supposed to build that road. That's the whole point. That's the reason you have the map.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. This was a tough one tonight.
I got one.
I got two, we should be not.
I am.
Oh, so that-